Good morning. It's 5 o'clock, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. We've got some rain this morning, and it looks like that'll continue through at least a bit of the morning. We've got 55 degrees now, and stick around for your forecast and for traffic still to come. Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz has resigned from Congress just hours after President-elect Trump nominated him to become Attorney General.
If confirmed, Gaetz would lead the same federal agency that investigated him for years for alleged obstruction of justice and sex trafficking. The Justice Department ultimately closed that investigation without filing charges. Gaetz would need a simple majority in the Senate to be confirmed. Some lawmakers, including Republicans, are expressing doubts.
ABC's Christiane Cordero. Republicans have maintained control of the House of Representatives, soaring to the 218 threshold for majority after Juan Ciscomani was elected in Arizona's 6th district. Tennessee's 4th district Congressman Scott DesJarlais on WTN's Matt Murphy show says everyone better buckle up if Republicans follow through on promises to cut wasteful government spending, even conservatives.
Along the way, it's going to hit home to some people, and people are going to have to say, be careful what you ask for.
DesJarlais says dealing with Social Security and Medicare insolvency will take some tough decisions. 2 employees are on administrative leave, and at least 3 agencies are investigating after a Montgomery County middle schooler suffered 2 strokes and required emergency brain surgery after an incident on a school bus. Jamie Horton tells Channel 4 she was especially concerned when she was told adults on the bus didn't step in to help her son.
It's almost like a nightmare every day when you wake up. You kind of forget where you are, and then you replay it all in your head again and again. Him not talking is probably the hardest thing.
12-year-old Hayden Holden had been put in a headlock by another student for 14 seconds and a few days later suffered strokes brought on by a vascular tear in his neck. Market Numbers Report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com.
ABC News, Wall Street now. Stocks with a mixed showing today. The Dow ending up 47 points. The S&P nearly 2 points. And the NASDAQ down 50. The tech-heavy NASDAQ took a slight loss. This comes as the latest consumer index report shows a slight rise in inflation in the month of October, up 2.6% from 2.4% in September. A bright spot for American drivers. Gas prices have fallen more than 12% from this year. Grubhub has a new owner after European food delivery giant JustEatTakeaway.com sold the platform to New York-based Wonder Grub for $650 million. JustEatTakeaway.com acquired Grubhub back in 2021 for more than $7 billion.
Stock futures this morning pointing up. The Dow futures are up 35 points. NASDAQ futures +4. S&P futures are gaining 2. That's the latest news, traffic, and weather. Next, I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. No problems on the roads this morning, and some of the construction that's normally there has been picked up because of the rain. Just take it slow this morning on the roadways. The little extra speed may cost you. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Information fueled,
opinion driven. This is Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
we talk news.
5:06, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, along with Joan Jones, Johnny B, Dan Mandis here. How are you, friends? I don't know. I'm kind of enjoying the heads exploding. Have you ever seen, in all your time, Joan, in Washington, D.C., the amount of angst and turmoil going on right now with Donald Trump's selection of Matt Gaetz as Attorney General?
It is delicious.
I think this is just so much fun.
It's really incredible. I was telling you about how I as soon as I heard the news, I went right to the TV and turned on MSNBC.
Yes.
Because I knew how delicious it would be. And it didn't disappoint whatsoever.
Now, you were telling me about Nicole Wallace and what she was doing, not with Matt Gaetz, but with Pete Hegseth.
Yeah.
And how she was, and this is some sort of inside stuff, but she was saying something to the effect of, how do you spell his name? She's got the piece of paper. How do you say his name?
She's talking to people off camera, like she's talking to the producers. How do you say that? Spell it for me. I don't understand. When you and I know full well that the name is right on the teleprompter.
Right.
And she can say it. She knows exactly who he is.
That's what pre-production meetings are for. That's what teleprompters are for. So this whole thing on the left with particularly Pete Hegseth, and we're going to get into Matt Gaetz. But with Pete Hegseth, they've been trying to deride his military career. They're trying to deride his tattoos. They're trying to deride who he is as a person and as a man. And I got to tell you, it is the usual disgusting nature of Washington, D.C. So we'll get into that. We spoke a lot about Pete Hegseth yesterday. I want to get into Matt Gaetz, because I got to tell you, this is some absolutely major league trolling that Donald Trump is doing. This is, of course, John Fetterman. He is the Pennsylvania senator, and he agrees. That's part of what's going on. This is Donald Trump major league trolling of Washington, D.C. It's not just the Democrats. It's the rhino establishment Republicans as well, and this is an absolute rebuke of Washington, D.C.
I mean, I would describe it as God-tier level trolling to just trigger a full-on China syndrome to own the libs in perpetuity.
Again, it's not just the libs, it's the establishment Republicans as well, and the Washington establishment. Now, somebody said to me, and so I'm going to take care of this right away. Somebody said to me, well, Dan, Donald Trump is getting in there and he's making all of these really controversial appointments. How is that going to lower the cost of eggs? How is that going to keep the price of gas low? How is that going to truly help the American people? Here's how. What Trump needs is people on his side. He is setting the table so that he can focus on the things that really matter to the American people, which is the economy and the border. And so as Donald Trump is going through all of these appointments, and you've got all of these people, they're hand-wringing about the loyalists. Donald Trump and the American people were absolutely screwed in his first term in office because he was held back. He was chained, if you will, by all of the lawfare going up against him. It was all about trying to get him out of office through impeachments, the Mueller investigation, the lies that were told about him constantly, and the stabbing in the back from people in Washington, D.C. And so Donald Trump is trying to avoid that so that he can focus on what the American people really want, which is lower prices and a border that is not out of control. And so basically what he's doing is he's setting the table. And so as John Fetterman is saying, and a lot of other people are saying too, well, this is nothing but trolling. No, it's not. It's Donald Trump setting the table so that he can focus on what is really important and not have to deal with all of the hijinks and shenanigans of Washington, D.C. I love this. Thomas Massey. He is surrounded by all of these reporters, and they're following him up an escalator.
He's the Attorney General. Suck it up.
Yeah, he said, it's not great audio, but he's basically said, Matt Gaetz is going to be the Attorney General, so suck it up. CNN writes this: Donald Trump's increasingly provocative cabinet picks have left some Republican senators aghast. Egads. And Washington is in shock. You know, does anybody really care that Washington is in shock? I know I don't. And you know what? If there's a place or a group of people that needs to be in shock, it is Washington, D.C. It is one bludgeon over the head after another for the establishment in Washington, D.C. And I love it. And yes, Donald Trump was sent, this was a mandate to do things his way. Because we've seen Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and all of the Democrats and some of the rhinos out there as well doing things their way. And we know how that turned out. Really high prices and massive amounts of illegal immigration, including some really bad hombres coming across our southern border. Not to mention all of that lawfare. So yeah, let's do things not the Washington way. Let's do things Donald Trump's way. CNN continues to write, but they really shouldn't, because the outrage, they say, is the point. The president-elect reached a new level on Wednesday, announcing Florida Republican Matt Gaetz, one of his most zealous agents of disruption, who, like Donald Trump, was once investigated by the Justice Department as his pick for Attorney General. Now, we're going to get into the investigation, but I'm just going to tell you that while the media is going to focus on the investigations of Matt Gaetz, and by the way, the other big question is, will he be able to get confirmed? That's why Donald Trump is trying to get this through recess appointments. We'll get into that as well. But investigations, they don't really impress me all that much, these bipartisan investigations by the Justice Department and ethics committees and so forth. The reason they don't impress me is because Matt Gaetz has made a lot of enemies in Washington, D.C. He has. Democrats and most certainly Republicans as well. I mean, who could forget the speaker battle between Kevin McCarthy and Matt Gaetz? I mean, that was huge. And so to me, I do understand there's a lot of Republicans that hate Matt Gaetz. That's why I don't have a lot of concerns about the investigations, the bipartisan investigations. The most important part of that statement has to be that the DOJ did not bring any charges. That is incredibly important. This is Andrew Weissman over at MSNBC. He is, of course, one of the talking heads over at MSNBC.
We are in pure George Orwell 1984 land where, they say black is white and we're supposed to believe it.
Right. Meantime, over at the networks like NBC.
What's the buzz on the Hill right now?
Well, I hope you don't forgive me for saying this, Kristen, but the general vibe on the Hill right now is WTF.
WTF. I love it. Now listen, for the last 8 years, Donald Trump has been the victim of countless unwarranted investigations, the victim of 2 attempted assassination attempts, twice impeached, been dubbed a convicted felon after all of those bogus criminal charges were brought. He's been stabbed in the back more times than I can count by former staffers. And now he's going to do things his way. And if it wasn't for the damn lawyers, I'd be playing Frank Sinatra, doing things my way. So some in the media, they're playing this audio as they try and tear down Matt Gaetz. Remember this? We all had a little fun with this.
Is it safe to say that based off of your comments, you're suggesting that these women at these abortion rallies are ugly and overweight?
Yes.
What do you say to people who think that those comments are offensive?
Be offended.
5:15 on Nashville's Morning News. On Super Talk 99.7, by the way, the news overnight, Matt Gaetz has now resigned ahead of course, being nominated or picked for the post of Attorney General by Donald Trump. He's now resigned his place in Congress and so in the House of Representatives. So this is huge. And it is, again, very controversial. I don't mind it, though. I see exactly what Donald Trump is trying to do. Yes, he is surrounding himself by loyalists, as he should, because of all of the things that I just mentioned about how his first term in office was distracted by the establishment in Washington, D.C. 5:16. Time to check the roads on WTN.
No delays this morning on the roads so far. We do have some construction areas in Franklin. It's closed on 5th Avenue between Church Street and South Margin, still for construction, and closed on 2nd Avenue North between Demonbreun Street and Union Street. That's road construction as well. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much. 5:16. As far as your weather goes, cloudy with rain. High of 58, and I don't know if it's still raining. Was it raining out there when you came in, Johnny? It was still raining when I came in.
Yes, it was.
All right, very good. So right now, 49 degrees at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's kind of funny because, as I mentioned, this audio bite.
Is it safe to say that based off of your comments, you're suggesting that these women at these abortion rallies are ugly and overweight?
Yes.
What do you say to people who think that those comments are offensive?
Be offended.
You know, I really don't care about all of that to me. And I know that those comments are very provocative. I get it. But, let's be honest. We've all been, and stop me when you've heard this before, we've all been called a lot worse than ugly and overweight. We have. We've been called Nazis and Trump has been called Hitler. So they can hand-wring all they want, but to me, I'd rather see all of this play out. And by the way, Matt Gaetz, the audio is everywhere this morning. Some of the more provocative things that he has said. But, some of these more provocative things that he has said, you know what? They're actually true.
The FBI, CDC, seems like every time I turn around, they're engaged in surveillance or list building or monitoring, and I don't care if it takes every second of our time and every ounce of our energy. We either get this government back on our side or we defund and get rid of, abolish the FBI, CDC, ATF, DOJ, every last one of them, if they do not come to heel.
Yeah, I mean, listen. Tell me where Matt Gaetz is wrong there. Tell me where he is wrong. What Donald Trump is doing is he's basically declaring war on Washington, D.C. That's what he's doing. He is putting one of the Department of Justice's loudest and most vocal critics, the attack dog, in charge of it. Trump has not only, again, declared war on Washington, D.C., but he's launched a nuclear attack. That's what it feels like. Let's also not forget this is the same DOJ that has been weaponized against not only Donald Trump, not only his allies, but also the American people. They went after Donald Trump. The FBI spied on Donald Trump. They spied on parents concerned about their kids' education. Many in the intel communities lied about the laptop from hell. They lied about the dirty dossier and Donald Trump, and they lied about Russian collusion. So screw them. As far as I'm concerned, sick Matt Gaetz on them abso-flippin-lutely. And now the guy that has been calling them out for years could possibly be the guy in charge of it. This is the guy, Matt Gaetz, who could come in and literally drain the swamp that is the Department of Justice as Attorney General. Now, yes, he has been investigated for sex trafficking, which many of his critics point out. But again, there were never charges. There were never charges filed. He's also being investigated by this, I'm air quoting here, this bipartisan House Ethics Committee on whether he engaged in sexual misconduct and illicit drug use. This centers on a trip to the Bahamas where women apparently were paid to travel for sex. There doesn't seem to be any evidence that I've seen that Matt Gaetz did anything wrong or illegal. Otherwise, I would think that he would have been charged. Now, again, he has resigned from the House of Representatives. I guess this committee was about to come out with a report that some say had some details, a very damning report, some say, on Matt Gaetz and this whole thing. That was supposed to come out next week, but now all of that, I'm assuming, is up in the air because he has resigned and is up for Attorney General. But again, I'm not impressed by the bipartisan committees investigating him because he's got a lot of enemies among Democrats and establishment Republicans as well. And very conservative Republicans, I'm sure. Gaetz has a lot of enemies. And I think that, for Donald Trump, I think that is by design. Now, the big question is, can Matt Gaetz and these other controversial picks, can they actually be confirmed? Donald Trump wants them quickly confirmed one way or another. By the way, since I left the airwaves yesterday at 9 o'clock, John Thune is now Senate Majority Leader, and he, despite all of the pushing from Trump supporters where we wanted Rick Scott in there, John Thune is now the Senate Majority Leader, despite the fact that Senator Marsha Blackburn and Bill Hagerty both say that they voted for Rick Scott. John Thune is actually the guy. Now, how big of a deal is this? Thune is out there saying that he will absolutely do his best to get all of these folks confirmed and pushed through the confirmation process. That's going to be a big question. Donald Trump wants recess appointments. We're going to talk about that here probably at 5:35 during the Gang of Three, among many other things. It is 5:23 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super text line is open, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. A lot of people chiming in. Always appreciate the feedback on the Super text line. Joan Jones has the news coming up at 5:30 on Nashville's Morning News. Joan, what is coming up?
An attack on a school bus leaves a middle schooler disabled. Also, a couple of teachers in Southern California are on leave for what they said to their students. Those stories coming up at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
Hey everybody, Dan Mandis with Nashville's Morning News and Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I was speaking to Dr. Christopher Van Shank the other day at a station event. Now, he's a psychiatrist, and he was telling me about the mental health crisis here in America. And as you know, it's out of control. The COVID lockdowns were an absolute disaster. And Dr. Van Shank, again, he's a psychiatrist. And if you're one of those people, you feel like maybe you need to talk to somebody, I would recommend Dr. Christopher Van Shank. He can help you with addictions, depression, anxiety. He can also help kids with the same thing. He's been doing this for 15 years. He's been helping people, and he is here for you today. So if you want to check out his website is nolensvillepsychiatry.com. That's nolensvillepsychiatry.com. There's a whole list of issues that he can help you with. So check him out. If you feel like he can help you, give him a call. The number is below, and good luck.
Good morning, 5:30 now, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. How safe are kids on school buses? In Clarksville, 2 employees are on administrative leave. 3 agencies are investigating after a near-fatal incident on a bus. Here's Channel 4's Steve Malin.
Jamie Horton's days are being spent here at Monroe Carroll Children's Hospital in Nashville. Instead of her son being in a school classroom, he's recovering from a massive stroke that has now turned their lives upside down. 12-year-old Hayden Horton was riding the bus the Friday before fall break in October. At some point on the bus ride home, Jamie says her son was put in a headlock by a high school student. She says based on video seen by investigators, that lasted for 14 seconds. 1 week later, Hayden was rushed to Vanderbilt, where he was found to have suffered multiple strokes resulting from a vascular tear in his neck.
Now, Mom Jamie Horton says that she was especially concerned when she was told adults on the bus seemingly taunted her son during the attack. In Southern California, 2 teachers have been placed on leave for targeting their Trump-supporting students. This is an AP history teacher at Valley View High School.
A rapist, draft-dodging coward. Treasonous scum. Why would he win? Why would he win? Why did he win?
Some students have protested his suspension, though, and at Chino Valley High School, another teacher was caught on a recording berating a student.
You deserve better than a rapist, bribery, treacherous scum.
Go! Take the Can you send security up? Please, room B205. I have a boy who has a Trump hat on, and I'm not going to tolerate it.
Now, both of the videos have racked up millions of views on social media. Market Numbers Report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com. Stock futures are looking a little brighter this morning. The Dow futures are up 47, NASDAQ futures gaining 11, and the S&P futures are up 4 points. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Well, there are some areas still closed by construction, but the rolling construction zones have been picked up this morning because of all the rain overnight. So you won't find any construction delays. It may be a little slower on the roads because of the rain. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Johnny, kill the music. Just kill it.
Boy, you like me to murder music right on the air.
Listen, I got something far better to play to lead off the Gang of Three. John, you guys seen this?
No.
That is Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Chris, is it Macchio? But they're singing God Bless America. And it's interesting because you've got Trump on the left, you got Elon Musk on the right, and this Chris Macchio, and I don't know who this is. Clearly, he's some sort of an opera singer. And they're at Mar-a-Lago singing God Bless America. And it's interesting. Conservatives and Donald Trump supporters love this.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, the left is saying this is cringy. I mean, Trump's got his hands stretched out, and so does Elon Musk, and they're just living their best life.
Oh, I love it.
I think it's great. I mean, when was the last time a president-elect came out and sang God Bless America?
It's been an age. It's been a while.
I was going to say, yes, it has been a while. So I think that's funny. I don't know who this Chris Macchio is, or Macchio. I think I'm showing my my lack of appreciation for whatever that is. Is that opera? Is that opera?
Sounds like it.
Okay. Anyway, so there you go.
It's a very strong male voice. That's what that is.
Woof. Yes.
Yes, it is. I actually, you know what? When I hear opera singers, I actually don't mind it. I just don't seek it out because, I prefer singers like, the ones like Brian Johnson and AC/DC. And apparently, Johnny, they're coming back.
Well, it's rumored, apparently. They said that several AC/DC fan sites said that a Facebook event page for their April 11th concert that's set to be in 2025 at U.S. Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, Minnesota, popped up.
Uh-oh.
And then mysteriously disappeared. Oh. But they think they're going to announce later this week that maybe tomorrow that they're going to have a U.S. tour now.
Okay, very good.
So classic rockers come back, plus another classic rock band. There's a gentleman that was actually going to be Van Halen's lead singer after Sammy Hagar, but he walked out of it because of the David Lee Roth appearance at the MTV Video Awards.
I remember that.
Or Music Awards.
Is it Mitch Malloy?
Mitch Malloy, yes.
There you go, yeah.
They say he's very upset that Van Halen has not been truthful about him being selected as lead singer. They kind of kept it hush-hush.
Well, didn't they intimate he was sort of fired as opposed to him not being real happy with the sessions and kind of walked away? I think that's kind of sort of what happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think what happened is they tried to say that Gary Cherone was their first choice.
Yeah.
But apparently, according to Mr. Malloy, that's not true. In fact, he's released a track, and the track is really good. If it weren't for lawyers, we'd play it for you because it's a very good track.
Yeah, and that's got, it's one of the tracks they came up with when he was with Van Halen for, it's just like a few weeks.
Yeah.
And they came up with some stuff.
Yeah, he was staying in the guest house at the Van Halen compound.
Now, Joan Van Halen is an American rock band.
Oh, my gosh.
You know what? I always know that when Joan's like...
I'm quiet.
She's quiet. She's like, can we go back to hearing the opera, please?
Yeah, I would like that very much, actually.
I love this from Gabe. Dan, can we change the call letters of WTN to WTF? Just for a couple of days of good comedy?
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'd go for that.
The haters are out, by the way. I can't read the whole thing on the air, but guy said his first time texter, and he said something to the effect of voices, or I should say the texts are coming in fast and furious. Here it is. 4617. Your voice sounds like nails on a chalkboard. Just the level of B itching you do is rather annoying. And then he says something that I don't even understand what it means. Maybe if you can tell me, 4617, it's something that I can't say on the air, but maybe somebody can tell me, maybe he can tell me what it means. If you're still listening, 4617, which, by the way, I know that you are because you're a hate listener.
Yeah, you guys never go away.
No, I'm just, you know what, by that level of hatred, I'm actually kind of surprised that he hasn't texted in before. Because, you know, the hate listeners, they are the most vociferous texters.
Well, maybe he's new. Maybe he's new to the area.
Or, you know what, maybe he's like Joan was yesterday, and when all hell is breaking loose, she goes and she tunes into MSNBC to, you know, hear the hue and cry of people on the left. And they, by the way, never disappoint. And maybe this guy is tuning into WTN for the first time to see what all the insurrectionists are saying about Matt Gaetz.
All the garbage.
All of the garbage and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, 3064 says, yes, they are listening. People dying for me to play Well, Dan from yesterday and that train wreck of a thing with Marsha Blackburn. I think
people were talking about that yesterday in my circle of friends. My husband thought that was pretty funny.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Was that a bigger deal than I don't think it's a big deal. But people who I haven't heard from in like years.
Yeah.
Are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. And I, in my mind, of course, because again, everybody knows I don't want to replay yesterday, but everybody knows that I obsess over things. And so I'm trying to downplay it in my mind, yet every email, every social media interaction, people are talking about it.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was a big darn deal.
Well, and plus you're taking heat for Chris Hand once again.
That's exactly right.
Chris Hand gets you in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it's him that stirs up the trouble. Then who do they blame but Dan Mandis?
Little old me.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, one of the big conversations out there is with Trump coming in and the efficiency of government and all that with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. Should NPR be defunded?
Absolutely.
Yes.
How many times have we heard this conversation?
Years.
I had a friend that worked for NPR in D.C. They actually had a chef. They had a chef who would...
What?
Yep. They had a chef. They would have their meals made for them when they come in. Yeah.
We're drinking crappy Folgers coffee.
And buying expensive crap out of a vending machine.
And they get...
Yeah.
And by the way, folks, the taxpayer dollars, of course, it pays for NPR. Although I believe they do have other means of funding. But the bottom line is that could they survive playing commercials like we have to? That's the big question.
Exactly.
Could they survive if they had to do what we have to do, which is, you know, play commercials and all that kind of stuff? And, you know, there was a big conversation, I think it was about a year ago, Joan, you probably remember this, where there was a guy at NPR, and he said, we're all just a bunch of liberals here, and we're in a liberal echo chamber.
Yes.
And they showed him the door.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to that guy, but he was with NPR for years. Oh, he got booted.
He did.
Well, and I tell you, could NPR survive? I've got two words for you: Air America.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There you go.
And it's not even can they survive? Should they survive with our tax dollars?
No,
Why
they shouldn't.
are we paying for them to be liberal? Why?
I was actually in an Uber, and Guy actually had NPR on. That has never happened before, where he had NPR on. And I was certain he wasn't a listener trying to troll me this time. And I didn't say anything. And I looked at Amy and I kind of rolled my eyes, and she gave me that look like, don't say anything. Just keep your insurrectionist opinions to yourself just for once, because we wanted to get to the airport. One soundbite that is out there about NPR. This is the woman who runs NPR, the CEO, Catherine Mayer, and you had Elon Musk tweet this out as a reminder of what NPR is all about.
I think our reverence for the truth might have become a bit of a distraction that is preventing us from finding consensus and getting important things done.
My gosh. Who is that?
That's the CEO, Catherine Mayer, NPR CEO, saying, it's that persnickety truth.
She's been listening to John Kerry too much.
Yes.
Well, she's been listening to NPR too much.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know if it'll ever happen. This always becomes a conversation. And let's see here. 1096, NPR, 90% funded by corporations and foundations. So, yes, they can survive. I don't know. We'd have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
For me, I know that they've got other forms of funding. I just saw this. But I think those corporations that are funding NPR, I mean, I'm not going to start doing the whole boycott thing and all that. I'm not, because you know what? Here's the deal. Donald Trump won despite all of that propaganda spewing from NPR and CNN and MSNBC. Because remember, in this, and I'll bring this up to my conservative friends, there was a big worry that if Kamala Harris won, that they would come after talk radio, because we already know that George Soros bought Odyssey, right? Remember that whole story? So the worry was that they would come after talk radio, the FCC. Right now, it's a 3-2 Democrat majority. Hopefully, Donald Trump will be able to not only fix that majority, but also they'll be able to stop that purchase of George Soros, a foreigner and his company, buying American radio stations. But that's a topic for another day. But that was one of the big worries. And so my comment was, okay, well, if Kamala Harris won or wins and we have to deal with that kind of thing, my answer to those people wanting to come after talk radio is, look, you won, despite the fact that talk radio is out there. Well, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I think I even said that on the air. So I don't want to be a hypocrite. So we won. It was a catastrophic loss for the Democrats, despite the fact that NPR is out there. So do I like that NPR exists? Do I like that NPR takes our taxpayer dollars? No, I don't like it at all. So if it's only a partial amount that funds NPR, which it is, then take that money away and let them survive on donations from corporations, and they're going to do what they're going to do.
Well, yeah, and they should. I mean, they should be like us. If they want to survive, they should do business as we do, by commercials.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
They not only get money. I'm just reading this right now on Wikipedia, and who knows if any of this is true because it's Wikipedia. But the Corporation for Public Broadcasting provides approximately 10%, maybe more. But they also get grants from places like the Department of Education and the Department of Commerce.
Wow.
So, it's
one way or another.
Yeah, they'll get their money from the federal government, but it needs to end. It just needs to end.
Exactly.
Dan, that was mean. Your voice is not like nails on a chalkboard. It's more like a chipmunk with painful diarrhea.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Tough crowd.
That's all right. That's all right. Let's see here. But people are coming in fast and furious. Apparently, that opening monologue people seem to like. I do like the fact that Trump is throwing a nuclear bomb down on Washington, D.C.
Oh, it's fun to watch.
Oh, my goodness.
It is fun to watch. Did you see, by the way, just very quickly, and I'm going to get into recess appointments after the news at 6. Did you see that Biden, of course, in the news today, Biden and Donald Trump got together, cozying up in front of the fireplace?
That was the biggest fire I think I've ever seen in a fireplace. I was worried that the fire would light something up in the chimney.
Well, I think that was emblematic of Washington, D.C., like a big old dumpster fire.
Yes. It was
Thank you.
huge. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
People are saying, did you notice that that Joe Biden was wearing a red tie?
Yes.
And his wife, Jill, was wearing a red dress. I'm telling you, I believe that Joe Biden voted for Donald Trump. I believe that because I think that he is still pissed off. He's as pissed off at the establishment, Washington, D.C., as Donald Trump is for different reasons. This is the audio that everybody's listening or playing. This is not great audio, but...
Donald, congratulations. Thank you. And looking forward to having like we said, a smooth transition. Do everything we can to make sure you're accommodated, what you need. And we're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. So,
good.
Welcome
Thank you
back.
very much. And thank you very much. And politics is tough, and it's in many cases not a very nice world, but it is a nice world today, and I appreciate very much a transition that's so smooth. It'll be as smooth as it can get, and I very much appreciate that, Joe.
You're welcome.
And there you go. Now, people are criticizing Joe Biden, of course, both sides of the aisle. The left is saying, how could you let Hitler in? And then people on the right are also saying, how could you let Hitler in? Right? Just sort of tongue-in-cheek because Biden was calling and has been calling Donald Trump Hitler for the last 4 years or whatever.
Do you remember Jill Biden also wore the red outfit when she went to vote?
I did not see that.
I didn't
Oh,
either.
yeah, she wore a red pantsuit.
Oh.
I'm telling
very,
you what.
very
man.
red.
I think
bright.
they're ticked.
They are ticked. I mean, wouldn't you be if you were? I mean, the way they look at it, Joe was thrown under the bus.
Here's the deal, though. Like Biden telling Barack Obama he was the better candidate, the stronger candidate, and Obama said yes. That's not actually the truth. Because remember when Biden stepped aside or was thrown aside, whatever, after the debate, he was polling terribly and he couldn't put a sentence together.
No.
So that was the problem with Joe Biden. At least, and I said this at the time, if I'm a Democrat, I want Kamala Harris because at least theoretically, she can put two words together and...
Kind of,
sort of, but not really.
She puts a lot of words together and they don't necessarily mean anything.
That's exactly, words together, but they're word salady, as we like to say. 5:54. Joan Jones has the news at 6. Joan, what's coming up?
Well, he was just named the president-elect's choice for Attorney General. We'll tell you what Matt Gaetz did that kind of left some folks in shock. And believe them or not, Congress is digging into reports of UFOs. Those stories coming up at 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. 6 o'clock on the dot, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. We're at 55 degrees, pretty overcast right now, and our high temp today is only 61, a little on the cool side. We've got the full forecast and traffic still to come. President-elect Trump continues a campaign of shock and awe as he makes his choice for Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz for Attorney General.
Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz has resigned from Congress just hours after President-elect Trump nominated him to become Attorney General. House Speaker Mike Johnson last night acknowledged Gaetz's swift resignation caught him by surprise. The House Ethics Committee was set to deliberate as soon as tomorrow on whether to release its final report on Gaetz. It's been investigating whether Gaetz engaged in sexual misconduct and illicit drug use, accepted improper gifts, and sought to obstruct government investigations of his conduct. Gaetz has denied any wrongdoing.
It's ABC's Christiane Cordero. U.S. government experts, former DOD and NASA officials and others testifying before a House Oversight Committee on reports of what they call unidentified anomalous phenomena. They used to call them UFOs. People at the hearing heard that the government has a huge amount of secret information on UFOs, including photos and videos. Andrew Dimbard from ABC on Luis Elizondo, who headed up a Pentagon program investigating these UFOs.
Elizondo saying the alleged extraterrestrial presence poses a national security threat.
Let me be clear. UAP are real. Advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe.
And saying he believes many classified materials should be shared with Congress and the public.
If this was an adversarial technology, this would be an intelligence failure eclipsing that of 9/11 by an order of magnitude. I believe that we as Americans can handle the truth, and I also believe the world deserves the truth.
Market Numbers Report now brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com.
From ABC News, Wall Street now. With one eye on the Fed, the other on inflation, traders sent stocks in opposite directions Wednesday. The Dow gained 47 points to close at 43,958. The Nasdaq closed down 0.3%. The S&P finished essentially flat. The rally in equities that came with last week's election coincides with a steep decline in gold prices. Spot prices have dropped nearly 7% since the election results last week to $25.59 per ounce. The Consumer Price Index, a key inflation gauge, was up 2.6% in October versus a year ago, an increase from 2.4% in September, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That reading was pretty much in line with economists' predictions.
And that's ABC's Jim Ryan. The stock futures this morning are all pointing up. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Got an accident this morning at Demumbian Street and Buddy Killen Circle. And that one was reported by police. Now, there's no other real accidents causing delays this morning, but you may want to slow down just a bit because of the wet roadways. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Information fueled,
opinion driven. This is Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
we talk news.
6:06 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to your friends, along with John DeBee. Joan Jones is here as well. I am Dan Mandis. Hey, coming up at 6:36, Congressman John Rose is going to join us. We've got big news coming from the House of Representatives. We, of course, now confirmed the numbers. We've got 218 to 208. That is a Republican majority in the House of Representatives, and I think those numbers are now final. Going to ask him about that. Mike Johnson is going to remain Speaker of the House. That is also news that broke here in the last several hours. And I'm going to ask him about a number of different things going on in Washington, D.C., and also, of course, here at home. I thought this was interesting. I'm going to give you the headline where here in the state of Tennessee, apparently now we do have violent Venezuelan gang members that are now resurfacing here in the state of Tennessee. This is from WKRN, the director of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, the TBI, warning a violent Venezuelan gang has resurfaced here in Tennessee. They say that compared to the transnational gang, MS-13, which is made up of mostly members of Central American descent, officials said members of the Venezuelan gang known to be involved in crimes ranging from trafficking women to committing murder in broad daylight. I'm assuming they're talking about Tren de Aragua, and they are. Now, I thought it was fascinating because, Joan, you played some audio earlier in the broadcast where not one but two teachers in Southern California, I know these areas very well. One, I think, was in Chino, and I forget where the other one was. But they were triggered, apparently, by students who were wearing Donald Trump gear. Is that what was going on?
Yeah.
And so now these teacher meltdowns have been caught on tape. One of the teachers, if you could play it, we can play both of them, but one of the teachers was basically asking, why would Donald Trump win? Is that what one of the teachers was quoted as saying? Go ahead and play some of that audio and we'll talk about it.
I'm not sure which one I have here, but I'll just play it for you.
Go! Take the Can you send security up? Please, room B205. I have a boy who has a Trump hat on, and I'm not going to tolerate it.
That one is the guy that was triggered by the kid wearing a Trump hat, so he called the office and said, hey, I've got a boy here wearing a Trump hat, and I just will not stand it. But this is the other one that you may have been talking about.
A rapist, draft-dodging coward, treasonous scum. Why wouldn't he win? Why wouldn't he win? Why did he win?
Well, because his opponent led in Tren de Aragua.
Yes.
I mean, it's not that hard. I mean, look at the state of California, you jerkhole. I mean, state of California is the antithesis of everything that Donald Trump wants to do. And so when you look at the state of California, high taxes, high crime, high illegal immigration, all kinds of problems in California. That, you moronic teacher, is why Donald Trump won. I always find it kind of funny when you have people that say, why did Donald Trump win? Oh, why? Oh, why? Well, it's obvious why he won. And all you have to do is look at the campaign of Kamala Harris to know and show why it is that Donald Trump won. Because everything the Democrats touch turns to crap. There's a headline out there today. Thank you, Joan. There's a headline out there today where the Democrats are freaking out. You know why the Democrats are freaking out? The Democrats are freaking out because they're worried that they're going to be on the hook for the millions of dollars that Kamala Harris lost during her campaign. $20 million at the very least. They don't know where to get this money because they owe this money. They owe it to, television stations and perhaps radio stations, but they owe this money. And so now the Democrats have to go hat in hand, and they have to go asking for more money to bail out their party. Now realize these are the same people that donated to Kamala Harris, and she spent all of this money on Oprah Winfrey. Oprah denies it. All this money on Oprah Winfrey and Beyonce and all of these celebrities ran a terrible campaign. And these donors are ticked off because they feel like they were lied to. And they feel like they were told that she had a chance of winning when the reality is she had no chance of winning. And their internal polling showed that. And she was a terrible candidate. And she did not utilize the campaign funds to their best advantage. $100,000 she spent on building a podcast studio for this podcast that she did with the Who's Your Daddy podcast. And so she lost the popular vote. She got creamed in the Electoral College. And you got all these people, all of these Democrat donors who were like, is this what we got for our money? She had $1 billion war chest, spent twice as much as Donald Trump did. Not to mention all of that, free glowing coverage from the media. And she still got her tail kicked. And she's $20 million in the hole. And now the Democrats are like, oh, crap, what in the world are we going to do? I love that. Top Democrat officials worried tens of millions in Harris's campaign debt could be their problem. Well, she was your candidate, guys. You're the ones that installed her instead of Joe Biden. So, yeah, it is your problem. Meantime, of course, you've been hearing, no doubt, if you've been listening to WTN, listening to the first hour of Nashville's Morning News, Washington, D.C., they are absolutely in a panic because of Donald Trump and some of his cabinet picks. We've been talking about this, and you've got Marco Rubio confirmed now as Trump's pick for Secretary of State. Kristi Noem has been picked for Department of Homeland Security. Earlier this week, we heard about Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, Lieutenant Colonel Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence, Tom Homan for Border Czar, and yes, Matt Gaetz, the Florida congressman, is Donald Trump's pick for Attorney General.
I mean, I would describe it as God-tier level trolling to just trigger a full-on China syndrome to own the libs in perpetuity.
Yeah, that is Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman, and he is absolutely right. I've got some great audio from Scott Jennings. You know him from, of course, CNN. Also, according to some, in the running to be press secretary. And I love what he had to say about this pick, this attorney general pick of Matt Gaetz by Donald Trump, and what exactly is a recess appointment. We're going to get into all of this straight ahead at Super Talk 99.7 WTN 6:15. Time to check the roads. Cloudy today with some rain, a high of 58. By the way, just from me to you, Joan, you might be able to attest to this. I know Johnny can. When it rains and it's like that first really good rain as the leaves start to change, you get all these leaves that fall onto the street. And years ago, we had one of these kinds of situations where it was rainy, it was fall, all the leaves fell onto the street, and it gets really slickery. It gets real... Slick and slippery is what happens. So, did you hear that? Slickery.
So you've admitted a new word right here.
Well, Johnny, apparently, yes, I have. It is 6:15 on Nashville's Morning News. Again, cloudy and rainy, a high of 58. Right now, 49 at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So, Matt Gaetz, as Attorney General. You like, you don't like. 615-737-9986. You got Democrats talking about how this is a clown car of cabinet picks, which is all fine and well. And none of this really surprises me. The reaction isn't surprising me at all. This is Scott Jennings. He was, of course, on CNN.
You were in disbelief.
Are you not entertained? I mean, this is the most entertaining transition I've ever seen. No, I was as surprised as Paula, because it's not a name that we had seen. You know, we'd seen some reporting, a lot of different names, frankly, a lot of really sort of well-heeled Washington legal types that were on the list. So I'm as surprised as anyone. But what I take away from this is that this is a president-elect who is feeling his power. I mean, this is someone who is appointing people to things, whether it's Gaetz or anything else we've seen today, who is feeling his power, feeling his influence, doesn't feel like he's in a mood to negotiate with the people in Washington, D.C. He's here to do what he wants to do, and he's going to expect the Republicans to fall in line. Now, all these people, whether it's Gaetz or Hegseth or anyone else, have to go to confirmation and go through these committee hearings and prove themselves like anyone else. But
well, maybe not. So a couple of things. John Thune is now the Senate Majority Leader. He was voted in, and apparently Blackburn and Haggerty, both our senators, did vote for Rick Scott, but Thune eventually got in. Thune says that he is going to do his very best to get all of these folks crammed through as these confirmation hearings. As you know, they tend to take a long time. The big question is, can Matt Gaetz and these other controversial picks actually be confirmed? Because there's a lot of, there's a lot of Democrats still, of course, in the Senate, and there's a lot of squishy Republicans as well. And so Trump wants his cabinet and the staffers quickly confirmed. It takes 60 senators out of 100 to approve. Again, John Thune won the Senate vote for leadership, so he is going to try to get all of this done quickly. Republicans have the Senate majority right now, 53 to 47. So even if they got every single Republican senator to buy into, for example, Matt Gaetz and Pete Hegseth, they still need some Democrats to buy in. In other words, could Matt Gaetz or any of these appointments get through the vetting process? Now, remember that in Donald Trump's first term, it took forever for his appointments to get confirmed. There was a lot of grandstanding, and you had a lot of people in the Senate on both sides that were doing everything they could possibly do to try to derail Donald Trump, including the Senate confirmation picks that he did. So that's part of the problem and part of the frustration that Donald Trump has, is that he could not hit the ground running. He could not hit the ground running when he was that first term in office. He simply couldn't. And the reason for that was because he was handicapped, because the Senate was dragging their feet on his confirmation picks. So Donald Trump wants a recess appointment. What is that? It's fairly simple. And it's complicated. I'm going to dumb it down. It's fairly simple. Congress goes on recess, and the president makes his appointments, and those appointments are approved because Congress, including the Senate, they're not working. They skip the advise and consent phase, and so those appointments last for no more than 2 years, at which time the president can reappoint the cabinet members, or they can go through another recess appointment. Now, before you listen to the hue and cry, the hysteria going on right now on MSNBC and CNN, oh my God, he's destroying democracy. He's using recess appointments. Well, George Bush made 171 recess appointments. Bill Clinton made 139, and Barack Obama made, they say, at least 32, according to the Wall Street Journal. So that's number one. Number two, we all do know the grandstanding of these confirmation hearings. They're a dog and pony show. Everybody gets on their soapbox. They talk, they yell, they point their fingers at one another, and yes, there's a lot of gaveling as well. Here's what the Wall Street Journal also says, and this is why Trump wants those recess appointments. The average length of a Senate confirmation process during Donald Trump's first term was more than twice as long as under President Reagan. As a result, much of the federal government was not staffed by the president's nominees. So he wants to avoid all that. He wants to say, you know what? I got hosed the first time around in many different ways. Let me just hit the ground running. Let me get these recess appointments in so that I can get the people that I want. And I did mention this in the first hour, and you're going to hear it again. A lot of people saying, okay, so this is what Donald Trump is choosing to do. Donald Trump is choosing to nuke Washington, D.C. by having Matt Gaetz, one of the biggest critics, one of the loudest critics of the Department of Justice, in charge of the Department of Justice. And people are losing their ever-loving minds. But how is that going to lower prices? How is that going to help me afford eggs and bacon and gasoline? Well, that answer is very simple because I'm already seeing that conversation as well on Twitter and on television. Trump needs people that he can trust. And so what he's doing is he is putting in people that he can trust so that he can focus on the things that are really important, of course, like lowering the cost of gas, lowering the cost of goods, keeping inflation down, and protecting our southern border. That is what President Trump is trying to do. We'll have to see how it all plays out. It is 6:22 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Joan Jones has the news at 6:30. Joan, what's coming up?
Well, President-elect Trump takes a victory lap at a gala last night, and what the TBI is telling Governor Bill Lee about gang activity in Tennessee. Those stories coming up at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Joan. 6:23. Big news from my friends at DT McCall's. If you've been thinking about buying a gun safe, but you've been putting it off, now is your time to buy it from DT McCall's because they are sales tax free. Sales tax free gun safes at DT McCall's. Now, they are the largest Liberty safe dealer here in the state of Tennessee. Why? Number of reasons, but number one is because they've got free delivery and free setup. That is huge. Other places charge $500 at least for delivery and setup in bigger models, $300 for smaller models. DT McCall's and Sons, they deliver every safe for free every time, period, and no setup charge either. So this is the place you want to go to buy your gun safe, DT McCall's. By the way, the holidays are coming up, folks. So if you've got a loved one, a 2A supporter that needs a gun safe, buy it now from DT McCall's. Save big bucks right now. Buy your Liberty gun safe when you shop at your local DT McCall's. Sales tax free. 5 locations across Middle Tennessee. Carthage, Cookeville, Lebanon, Lafayette, Franklin. Always online, dtmccalls.com.
Do you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
Hey everybody, Dan Mandis with Nashville's Morning News and Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I was speaking to Dr. Christopher Van Shank the other day at a station event. Now, he's a psychiatrist, and he was telling me about the mental health crisis here in America. And as you know, it's out of control. The COVID lockdowns were an absolute disaster. And Dr. Van Shank, again, he's a psychiatrist. And if you're one of those people, you feel like maybe you need to talk to somebody, I would recommend Dr. Christopher Van Shank. He can help you with addictions, depression, anxiety. He can also help kids with the same thing. He's been doing this for 15 years. He's been helping people, and he is here for you today. So if you want to check out his website is nolensvillepsychiatry.com. That's nolensvillepsychiatry.com. There's a whole list of issues that he can help you with. So check him out. If you feel like he can help you, give him a call. The number is below, and good luck. 6:29, Nashville's Morning News on WTN. Coming up, we've got Congressman John Rose, House Majority. We're going to talk about their House Majority. Came out this morning, I guess, 218 to 208. That is the final number. Republicans have the majority, 218 to 208. And so we'll ask him about that. We'll ask him about Matt Gaetz. We'll kind of ask him about the temperature in Washington, D.C. after Trump nuked Washington, D.C. And we'll talk about the priorities of the incoming House. A lot to talk about with Congressman John Rose coming up next right here on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 89.7 WTN.
It is 6:30, and I'm Joan Jones with the latest news. We've got your forecast and traffic, too, coming up in just a couple of moments. Well, after returning to Florida following his trip to Washington, President-elect Donald Trump made an appearance at the America First Policy Institute's annual gala at his Mar-a-Lago club last night.
They say most consequential win in the last 129 years. What's that all about? That's a lot. I just wanted to win. Didn't have to be that much. I just wanted to win. But we did. Yeah, too much winning. Too much winning. There's no such thing. Is there any such thing as too much winning?
Elon Musk was there as well, Trump thanking him for his consequential endorsement. Republicans have maintained control of the House of Representatives, soaring to the 218 threshold for a majority after Juan Ciscomani was elected in Arizona's 6th district. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation has put Governor Bill Lee on notice about an alarming number of incidents involving the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. TBI Director David Roush testifying on Tuesday.
Recently, there was a video that they shot where they shot an individual, a cartel member, 31 times, broad daylight, on video and posted it to social media. And that's the type of organization they are. They are very violent. This is a group that was created in gangs in Venezuela, in the prisons in Venezuela, and they are here, and they're in numbers here.
Thanks to Channel 4 for that audio. Roush says that they are also seeing more cases of human trafficking, organized retail theft, and drug sales. Market Numbers Report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com. We've got the Dow futures up about 94 points right now. The NASDAQ futures are gaining 10. S&P futures are plus 5. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
Thank you, Joan. 6:32, Nashville's Morning News. Stop letting high-interest debt weigh you down. Pay it all off in days, thanks to Loan Pronto's new Rapid Equity Loan. Listen up, homeowners. Imagine a completely hassle-free way to cash out your home's equity. No appraisals, no paperwork, and no waiting. Loan Pronto's all-new Rapid Equity Loan uses AI-driven technology to get you approved for cash out in as little as 1 day. Now, one client of Loan Pronto's got $100,000 approved in just under 24 hours, wiped out their debt, launched a home improvement project, and is now saving over $1,000 a month. Instant approvals, low fixed rates, fast transfers, get cash to consolidate all your debt, and get a fresh start for the new year. Call Loan Pronto now and see how much you qualify for. This time next week, you could be credit card debt-free. So don't wait. Get your cash fast. Call 615-499-5780, 615-499-5780, loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, on approved credit, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
Got a problem this morning in the Gulch. I-40, the westbound lanes, the off-ramp there to Demumbrian Street, that's exit 209B. There's a stalled-out vehicle, and the off-ramp has been blocked off by it. Also, a crash on 24 eastbound lanes before Whites Creek in Pike, and that's exit 35. And then also this morning, got a crash right on Demumbrian Street at Buddy Killen Circle. All of that this morning, also in light of having all the rain on the roads this morning, some leaves, as Dan was mentioning earlier, that can cause some problems. So it may be wise to keep the speeds down. Traffic every 10 minutes.
Go ahead,
every
Joan.
morning.
You can use my word. It's going to be slickery.
I'm sorry. It's going to be slickery on the roads this morning.
Let's make that term happen. Slickery.
So then what becomes of the drink that you use to help your throat?
That's going to be slippery elm still.
It's
not
not
a
going to be
problem.
slippery elm?
Sure.
Gotcha.
Whatever
Traffic
works.
Every 10 minutes, every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.638, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Let's get right to the Newsmaker Hotline. Congressman John Rose is joining us. Congressman, always great to have you on Nashville's Morning News. So waking up this morning from what Fox News is reporting, now the House majority 218 to 208. Republicans, of course, have the majority. How are you feeling this morning?
Good morning, Dan. Thanks for having me on, and very excited for us to have that be official. We've known for some time that would be true, but just good to have that behind us and have it be officially declared that we're going to hold majority in the 119th Congress.
So, of course, I don't know if you're in D.C. this morning or if you're back home here in Middle Tennessee, but Donald Trump, as you no doubt know, he has come out with some cabinet picks, including Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. Washington, D.C. is melting down. The former president-elect, also wants to do this via recess appointments. John Thune is the new Senate Majority Leader. He says that he'll be able to get these through with the simple majority vote of 51 to get all of these confirmed. But President Trump, he wants to do this through a recess appointment. I spent the previous segment talking about what exactly is a recess appointment. But do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I think that I think all of us who are supporters of the president and want to see him, move forward with his vision for restoring the greatness of America, and we know what that means, and we know it will take the right people in key positions, and we want to see the president succeed. If the majority leader in the Senate thinks he can get those through the normal process, I think that's fine by me, and that's fine by us. If what we don't want to see is the Senate second guessing the president, and obviously the Senate has a role to play, but I think we want the president to get his choices, and only if there is some overwhelming problem with the nominee? Would we want to see them held up? And probably if the Senate discovers something in the vetting process that the president didn't know about, then maybe that would be an appropriate place for the Senate to second guess or to stop an appointment. And I think that's what the president is saying. Let me have the people that I want on my team to accomplish the goal that the American people sent me here to accomplish. And he has a mandate. So I think that's really the issue.
Well, Congressman, I mean, you were there in Washington, D.C. I was watching all of this as well. Donald Trump's first term in office, when he went through these, and we all went through these confirmation hearings and covering it and so forth, it took forever. And it almost felt like Washington, D.C. and the folks in the Senate, they were slow walking a lot of these. And I think that, people are asking me this morning, okay, so Matt Gaetz as the Attorney General and some of these other more controversial picks, how is this going to help with the cost of eggs and bacon, for example? And what my response to that is, because I've got some hate listeners and, we have people that ask us these gotcha questions. And my answer is, well, it's because President Trump has to set the table with people that he can trust so that he can focus on the priorities of the American people. Congressman, in the news today, here in the state of Tennessee, we've got TBI telling us that Tren de Aragua is in Tennessee. And this doesn't really come as a surprise. They're everywhere in America now, thanks to the open border of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. And so I think for you as a congressman and for the House majority, you all need to look at your priorities for the American people. This was a mandate. What can you do related to the border, and how can you make this mass deportation of Donald Trump and what he wants to do, how can you make that easier?
Well, again, I think you and I are on the same page. And the American people have sent a strong message by reelecting the president overwhelmingly. Really the ultimate verdict, by the way, beyond just the vision for America that the president has announced and put forward. We all know the facts surrounding all the different issues, whether it be the vision for America or whether it be the guilt or innocence of the president, and the American people have spoken. So it's the ultimate jury verdict, and the verdict is not guilty, and an endorsement, in fact, beyond that of President Trump's agenda. So I think, we need to see the Senate get on board quickly. We have seen this in recent years where the Senate and some senators are second guessing, and they're, you might say, trying to override the will of the American people. And so they need to move quickly through this. The confirmation process is not supposed to be about the Senate, changing the agenda or second guessing. It's supposed to be about them just making sure that that the right people are put in and that something hasn't been missed. And so, but not to delay the implementation of what the president wants to accomplish. I think you see a really determined purpose from the president with the pace at which these announcements have been made and the choices that he's making that affirms what his goal is. And so these individuals that you're seeing putting forth, it's kind of a no-nonsense approach. He knows what he wants to accomplish, and he's picking people who not only will accomplish those ends, but who send a signal in and of themselves that they will accomplish these purposes.
645, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7. Congressman John Rose is joining us. I'm going to ask you about some of those picks coming up, Congressman. Some people are calling some of these picks controversial. I think there is a very clear message that President-elect Trump is sending to not only Washington, D.C., but also the American people. This conversation continues. Got to check the roads real quick on WTN. Cloudy today, a chance of rain. It's still raining, as a matter of fact, I think, in some parts of Middle Tennessee. High of 58, right now 49 at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Congressman John Rose is joining us. And Congressman, I know that Washington, D.C. is just, heads are exploding from Matt Gaetz and President Trump wanting Matt Gaetz to be his attorney general. Also, another controversial one, Pete Hegseth for defense secretary. I understand where President Trump is going with all of these, and it makes perfect sense to me. But what's your feeling on these? Do you find these controversial?
Well, I would say somewhat provocative, you might say, just because they're a little outside the norm in terms of what you've seen presidents choose, and even what you saw the choices you saw the president make during his first term in office. But I think the president learned a lot from his first term in office, and he's not looking for superstars necessarily or people who would be the consensus pick for these positions, but rather people who will accomplish the objectives that the American people sent him to Washington to accomplish. And so I think these are picks that give us a window to that. And so I think the two that you mentioned in particular, and of course, a little shout out to Pete Hegseth, who is a resident of the 6th District or a citizen, one of my constituents in the 6th District, and proud for him and looking forward to seeing him assume the role as Secretary of Defense and get the job done that President Trump wants him to get done, which is to, get on about the business that is, the Department of Defense's true purpose and eliminate a lot of the, side distractions that have occupied the current administration.
Oh, yeah. Pete Hegseth, and I love Pete Hegseth, and he is all about getting the DEI out and focusing on the issues and the tasks at hand. Overnight, I believe it was overnight, yesterday at some point, Speaker Mike Johnson, I should say, Speaker Mike Johnson, House of Representatives, he has now, apparently he's going to be the speaker again here in the next congressional session. There are some folks in the House that have not been thrilled with how he has done. I know that there is some controversy there. President Trump apparently recommended that he remain Speaker of the House. Are you satisfied with the job that he did last year, and how do you think he's going to do this year under President Trump?
Well, I'm a big fan of the speaker. I haven't agreed with every decision he made, but the president I was there yesterday when the president spoke to the House Republican conference, and he did give a ringing endorsement to Speaker Johnson, which was very helpful. And then we reelected Speaker Johnson unanimously. In fact, there was no opposition at all to him. It was done with a voice vote. No one spoke up in opposition, and so. I think that's the right choice. And, again, it's a tough job, and it's a tough job when you have, what will be probably 222 or 21, 22, 23 House members that have to come together and agree. And we will need them all together on the House floor on January 3rd to elect Speaker Johnson. We won't have any support from the Democrat side. And so that's very important. And I think he will do a good job. I think he's committed to implementing the vision that President Trump has, and I think our conference will come together. There's a reason we have all these folks. The founders had a vision in mind for how they wanted government to work, and sometimes that's a little bit messy, but I think it will work. And so I support him and feel like he will do a good job, and looking forward to us taking up in earnest the powerful vision that the president has for restoring the greatness of America.
That environment last night with President Trump speaking to you folks, it must have been electric. Talk a little bit about, I've only got about 45 seconds left, but talk about the mood in the room. People have to be excited.
Absolutely. And of course, Elon Musk was with him, and it was just, one of those moments that, a singular moment for probably most people in that serve in Congress, knowing that this is a moment when we can actually make great progress and accomplish goals. I've been here for 6 years. All of that time we've been stymied by a uncooperative Democratic majority in the House for, during my first 4 years, and then, a do-nothing Senate for the last 2 years that has just stood in the way of everything. And so knowing that we have a powerful, strong leader with a clear vision and the wherewithal to get the job done that the American people sent us there to do. And I think there's a real sense of this is such a critical moment and a great leader to help us accomplish what is necessary to set the country back on the right path.
It is a massive opportunity. Congressman John Rose, always great to have you on Nashville's Morning News. Appreciate it. 6:51 on Nashville's Morning News. Joan Jones has the news coming up at 7.
Well, they're not moving out of the country, but some well-known people are closing down their X accounts. We'll tell you why, although I think you probably already know. Those stories coming up at 7 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All righty, Joan, thank you very much. Dan Mandis here. Skip the hassle and sell your home with the strongest cash offer this fall with Mark Spain Real Estate. Their guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. There's no showings, no open houses, and no costly repairs. Just cash in hand and a stress-free sale. Listener Ryan said that Mark Spain Real Estate exceeded their expectations by helping us achieve significantly over our asking price. He says, we can't recommend Mark Spain enough, and neither can I. Now, their guaranteed offer gives you the peace of mind that your home will be sold when you need it to be sold. Skip the hassle and sell your home with the strongest cash offer this fall. The guaranteed offer from Mark Spain Real Estate is the easiest way to go. 855-299-SOLD, 855-299-SOLD. You can always find them online, markspain.com, to get a guaranteed offer on your home today. That's markspain.com, and start packing. 6:56, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Coming up, one of the things that President-elect Donald Trump wants to do is he wants to shore up our elections. He wants to make sure that they are fair and they are free and they are accurate and that everybody has an ID and that these elections are foolproof so that people have faith in our elections. Hans von Spakovsky, our elections expert from the Heritage Foundation, he is going to join us. We're going to talk about exactly what it is that Donald Trump wants to do, what the insiders in the Trump administration and the Trump circle are saying that the president-elect wants to do, and will they help ensure that we do have free and fair elections? All of that and a whole lot more straight ahead. Nashville's Morning News on WTN.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Good morning. It's now 7 o'clock, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. We're sitting at 56, pretty overcast right now. Stick around for the full forecast and your traffic coming up in just 5 minutes. Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz has resigned from Congress just hours after President-elect Donald Trump nominated him to become Attorney General.
If confirmed, Gaetz would lead the same federal agency that investigated him for years for alleged obstruction of justice and sex trafficking. The Justice Department ultimately closed that investigation without filing charges. Gaetz would need a simple majority in the Senate to be confirmed. Some lawmakers, including Republicans, are expressing doubts.
At CBC's Christiane Cordero reporting. In Montgomery County, 2 employees are on administrative leave. At least 3 agencies are investigating after a middle schooler suffered 2 strokes and required emergency brain surgery after an incident on a bus. Jamie Horton tells Channel 4 she was especially concerned when she was told that adults on the bus didn't step in to help her son.
It's almost like a nightmare every day when you wake up. You kind of forget where you are, and then you replay it all in your head again and again. Him not talking is probably the hardest thing.
12-year-old Hayden Holden had been put in a headlock by another student for 14 seconds, and a few days later he suffered strokes brought on by a vascular tear in his neck. A Connecticut teacher was placed on leave for posting a Snapchat video of herself making violent threats against voters who chose President-elect Donald Trump. Annie Dunleavy is her name. She is a special education student.
Just because you won doesn't mean we don't remember who the you voted for. You're not in the clear. And just please, please don't test your gangster on me, because you will end on a stretcher, gone forever.
She has since apologized, saying she made the video in a moment of high emotion. Well, they're not moving out of the country, but some well-known people are limiting their social media presence.
I have loved connecting with all of you on Twitter and then on X for all of these years. But it's time for me to leave the platform.
That's former CNN host Don Lemon, who thinks X is no longer a place for what he calls honest debate and free speech. Actress Jamie Lee Curtis also deactivated her X account, as well as the UK newspaper The Guardian, which posted a long missive about its decision. Elon Musk replied to it, saying they are irrelevant, a dying publication. Stock futures this morning are moving higher. That is the latest news. We've got traffic and weather just ahead. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Well, we do have some delays this morning. There is a crash in Hermitage. It's on Central Pike at Tulip Grove Road. Also, an accident in Jolton that's got the left lane blocked on 24 eastbound after Whites Creek. And a crash in Nashboro Village, Murfreesboro Pike at Bell Road. And just one more. This one is on Rural Hill Road, north of Mount View Road. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Information fueled,
opinion driven. This is Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
we talk news.
7:06, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to your friends. Johnny B is here. Joan Jones is here. I'm Dan Mandis, and Hans von Spakovsky is here. One of my favorite all-time guests, Hans. It took me a long time to figure out how to say your name. I still shank it on occasion, but I appreciate you joining us here on Nashville's Morning News. So I'm hearing...
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and so one of the things that President-elect Donald Trump, he has said this in the past, and others are saying it now as well from his inner circle, if you will, is that he wants to change the voting laws, and there's a few things that have been mentioned. He wants to make Election Day a national holiday where employers are mandated to give people the day off with pay so that they can go vote. Mandate, of course, voter ID so that the ID matches the voter rolls, and mandate paper ballots for federal elections. Now, some of these things, there's going to be a conflict between federal and state laws and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, on the overall comment on this, I think that it doesn't really help or hurt any particular side. Some of these things just make sense.
Well, I agree, but, you know, it's so odd that the leadership of the Democratic Party for the last, now 20 years has been adamantly opposed to voter ID laws. And this is one of those great examples, Dan, where the leadership's views are totally divorced from their constituents, because the polling shows that, for example, voter ID, it's overwhelmingly supported by Americans, including 69% of Democrats. So the constituency of the Democratic Party says, yeah, you ought to have to show an ID, but their leadership doesn't. So if they try to push a bill like this through Congress, unless the Democrats have learned their lesson from what happened last Tuesday, it is going to be a very fierce fight because, like I said, they have completely opposed what everybody thinks is common sense, except for Democratic members of Congress.
So how surprised, without getting into the politics, because you can't necessarily do that, but how surprised were you, or were you surprised at what happened a week ago?
You know, I was cautiously optimistic, and the reason I say that is that I did not believe the polling. You know, the polling showed it a neck and neck race, but I know that in the past, in 2016, for example, the polls greatly underestimated his support, Donald Trump's support, and I think that's because I know a lot of people who were afraid to admit they supported Trump, because if they did, think about the huge attacks the left, MSNBC and others staged on anyone voicing any kind of support for Trump. Ordinary people saw that. They were afraid to even put up signs off it in their neighborhoods if they lived in urban areas, because they were afraid that their cars and their houses would get vandalized. And I think when a stranger calls you on the phone and says, well, who are you supporting? I think there are a certain percentage of people didn't want to answer that question because they don't trust pollsters and they didn't trust who was calling them. So I thought the polling probably underestimated his support, but I have to say, even I was surprised at the huge number of votes that he got in traditionally very blue areas.
Yep. And California is one of them. And to be honest, Hans, I don't see how the polling I don't know if polling will even be relevant moving forward. Do you? I mean, how did they recover from, being so off here in 2024?
I don't know. And their job has gotten enormously more complicated, actually, as technology has advanced. It hasn't gotten easier. You know, one of the biggest problems they have, and I don't think a lot of people realize this, is, look, they used to use phone books, phone directories to pick out voters in a particular area. Well, that was because if you lived in Virginia, you would have a Virginia area code. But everybody now has cell phones.
Yep.
A lot of people don't even have phones in their homes anymore, and people's numbers go with them.
Yep.
So you could be calling somebody with a California area code, but where do they live? Richmond, Virginia, and they've lived there for years, and pollsters are having a hard time coping with that.
So you're talking about the voter laws mandating, one of the things that they are talking about is mandating paper ballots for federal elections. I don't know if I've ever spoken to you about your thoughts on going back to just strictly paper ballots.
Well, it's unclear to me what he means. Actually, most of the country uses paper ballots.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that they are what we call OptiScan ballots.
Yep.
You fill out the paper ballot in your polling place, and then it's run through a computer scanner to count it. If they're talking about returning the country to hand counting of 150 million ballots, that's crazy and it's impractical. If they're talking about trying to get places like Georgia to get rid of their all electronic voting machines and just use, OptiScan paper ballots with a computer scanner counting it, that to me makes sense. That's what I've always recommended because you've got an audit trail that way. You've got the speed of a computer scanner to count the ballots, but if anybody makes any claims that somehow the scanner is malfunctioning, you've got the paper ballots that you can hand count to compare to the computer total.
Yeah, like here in Nashville, we go to the computer, we touch the screen, and we make our choices. The ballot comes out, you check it, and then you double check it, and then you hand it in. So that is how a lot of places do it.
Right. So I like I said, I'm not sure. I haven't really heard the details of what they're talking about. And the other problem with that is the disability community is going to complain loudly about that. Because the one advantage that these electronic voting machines have is if you are blind, for example, you don't need assistance to vote. With a paper ballot, you got to have somebody in there marking your choices. But with electronic voting machines, they have an audio feature that allows you, if you're blind, to vote all by yourself. And that's one of the big reasons that those kind of machines were pushed. And I don't know if they realize it, but, right now it is a requirement of federal law that you have at least one electronic voting machine in every precinct in the country just so that people who are disabled, particularly people who are blind, can vote by themselves without assistance.
Interesting. Well, now, Hans von Spakovsky, you've been on the front lines of looking at things like ballot harvesting, voter fraud, and the rest of this stuff for, years and years. You've written books on it. Coming up after the traffic, I got to check the traffic real quick, but after the traffic, I'm going to ask if you were impressed with how smooth this last election went, because we found out within 24 hours really that Donald Trump had won the election when there were some people that were saying it was going to take days or weeks. Details coming up. Hans von Spakovsky from the Heritage Foundation. 7:15, time to check the roads on WTN. Cloudy today with a rain, a high of 58. Appreciate you listening to Nashville's Morning News. And I guess I should ask, Hans, were you impressed? How did you feel this last election was executed, given the fact that there were dire predictions of, a lot of questions and riots in the streets and protesting and all that other kind of stuff? Everything by and large seemed to work out well. And where there were problems, they had them fixed pretty quickly.
Yeah, but that's because there have been a lot of changes since 2020. I'm glad it went the way it did. I was dreading the idea of not knowing results for weeks. But look, the 2020 election spurred a lot of states to put in all kinds of reforms. Tennessee, by the way, being one of them. But look, Georgia, as you know, which was a problem in the last 2020 election, they passed a huge election reform package that made all kinds of changes. Joe Biden hated it so much, you'll recall, he went to Atlanta to claim that it was Jim Crow 2.0 and Major League Baseball moved their game out. Not only did it alleviate many of the problems from the last election, but they had record registration and turnout, once again proving that Joe Biden doesn't know what he's talking about. North Carolina, same thing. North Carolina went very smoothly despite the hurricane damage, but that's also because they passed reforms like they finally had a voter ID law in place for voting. So the smoothness went because so many states actually did pass reforms. And listen, then the other key factor was, you'll recall, in the 2020 election, Democrats went to court on multiple occasions at the last minute and convinced local election officials and others to change the rules on things like absentee ballots. They tried that again in this election, but this time both the Trump campaign and the RNC were ready for it. And the prime example I'll give you of this was that in Georgia, just before Election Day, a Democratic election official in Cobb County, one of the biggest states there, said, we got 3,000 absentee ballots, and they came in after the deadline set by state law. We're going to count them anyway. And they actually got sued immediately by the Trump campaign and the RNC, and they ended up getting an emergency order from the state Supreme Court telling Cobb County, you can't do that. You have to comply with state law. They stopped those kind of efforts this election, which they weren't able to do the last election because they weren't ready for them.
Yeah, and I think you and I, Hans, had a couple of conversations where you talked about how pleased you were and impressed you were that Laura Trump and the Republicans had learned from what happened in 2020. Yeah. And I think it's great. And now we'll have to see what they do moving forward now that they have the Senate, they have the House, they have the White House. Do you think there's any chance in heck that voter ID laws will be able to be implemented one way or another moving forward now that they have the majorities in both chambers?
Well, I'm afraid that Democrats in the Senate will filibuster that and try and prevent that from going through. But look, the other big thing is that Donald Trump now has control of the U.S. Justice Department. And that means, for example, that they can finally do what the Biden administration has refused to do, sue states like California that have refused to clean up their voter registration rolls. There's a federal law requires states to do that. California is one of the places where they refuse to take people off the rolls. But that's something the Justice Department can do now that it's going to be under a new administration.
All right, Hans von Spakovsky, always great to have you on Nashville's Morning News, and we'll have you on again sometime soon. Always great to talk to Hans. It is 7:20 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I got to tell you that one of my favorite audio bites this morning is John Fetterman. You heard Hans talking about the Justice Department, and we know that right now, today, this morning, the DOJ, the Attorney General, Matt Gaetz, who President Trump has tapped to be his Attorney General, big time in the news. John Fetterman said,
I mean, I would describe it as God-tier level trolling to just trigger a full-on China syndrome to own the libs in perpetuity.
I mean, you have, I don't know if you've seen it, but we were talking earlier about what is going on in Washington, D.C., the mainstream media. They are absolutely freaking out about Matt Gaetz, and people are asking me to explain, okay, so what is this criminal investigation into Matt Gaetz that a lot of these folks are talking about? I'll get into that. The bottom line is, because I got to run, but the bottom line is that no charges were filed. There was an investigation into Matt Gaetz. There was things like sex trafficking and some drug use and bribery, and the Department of Justice looked into it, and the Department of Justice didn't bring any charges. To me, that's the most important thing, if there is no charges. And it revolved around this trip to, I think it was, was it Barbados? I can't remember now, but it was some trip that he took somewhere. And the accusation was that he took part in this sex trafficking because there were women supposedly that were sent to this foreign country for sex. And they said that he was part of that. That was the accusation. But you know what? If the Department of Justice didn't bring any charges, then you're innocent until you're proven guilty. But everybody is bringing that up this morning. The other thing that they're bringing up is this bipartisan ethics investigation, also into Matt Gaetz. Supposedly, they were going to be putting out a report next week. But now I think they're not going to. We'll have to see what happens to that report. But just so you know, I don't put a lot of stock these days in bipartisan committees that are looking into possible ethics violations. You know why? Because you had the January 6th committee that was, and I'm air quoting here, bipartisan. They had Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, two people who were Republicans, but they were Trump haters. Can we all be honest? If you know anything about Matt Gaetz, you know that he has made enemies on both sides of the aisle. People hate him. Remember the whole thing with Kevin McCarthy way back when? And should Kevin McCarthy be the speaker? And Gaetz challenged him. And he was kind of like the ringleader in all of that. And so there's a lot of people that just, they don't like Matt Gaetz because they say that he is a disturber. He is somebody who likes to stir things up. And people are saying that President-elect Trump deciding that he wants Matt Gaetz as the Attorney General. That is like throwing a nuclear bomb in the middle of Washington, D.C. Personally, I love it. There's a lot of people who don't, whatever, but you know what? Let's all be honest, and I'm going to get into this coming up next. There's a lot of problems in Washington, D.C. There's a lot of problems there within the Department of Justice. I know it, and you know it, and a lot of these career swampers, if you will, that the media and the people within the swamp in Washington, D.C. like to talk about. People like Leon Panetta. You know what I'm talking about? People who have been in the swamp forever. Panetta used to run the CIA and so forth. And you got a lot of people saying that's the kind of person that we need to run the Department of Justice. That's the kind of person that we need, somebody who has swamp experience at different levels. Well, okay, but isn't that how we got to where we are now, where we have all of this lawfare that was being used against Donald Trump? So to me, I say bring on Matt Gaetz. Absolutely. Now, some people may disagree with me, and that's fine. I know what Trump is doing. I know what the other side is doing as well. We'll have to see how this whole thing shakes out. 724. Joan Jones has the news at 7:30. Joan, what's up?
A construction worker has been killed after an accident in Putnam County. Also, a well-known conservative voice is off the air today, sidelined by a serious injury. We've got those stories at 7:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Joan. Dan Mandis here for my window company, Window Nation. Now, they put new windows in my basement studio, my kitchen, and my bedroom. I love my windows, and I love Window Nation. Why? Well, because they're helping to save my listeners a lot of money in the short term and the long term. If you even think that you need windows, call my window company, Window Nation, because they can help hook you up with great windows and save you money in the process. They're offering you a huge deal right now, 50% off all their window styles, including double hung, bays, picture windows, and every other window imaginable. You pay nothing until 2025 and get 0% interest for 5 full years. Now, these folks at Window Nation, they're truly experts in their field, and their installation teams have over 10 years of install experience. You know, the 96% of all their installed windows require no follow-up service, and they can install in a day or less, and Window Nation offers a lifetime warranty. Remember that great deal? Any window, 50% off. You pay nothing until 2025 and pay no interest for 5 full years. 866-90-NATION, 866-90-NATION, windownation.com. Hey everybody, Dan Mandis with Nashville's Morning News and Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I was speaking to Dr. Christopher Van Shank the other day at a station event. Now, he's a psychiatrist, and he was telling me about the mental health crisis here in America. And as you know, it's out of control. The COVID lockdowns were an absolute disaster. And Dr. Van Shank, again, he's a psychiatrist. And if you're one of those people, you feel like maybe you need to talk to somebody, I would recommend Dr. Christopher Van Shank. He can help you with addictions, depression, anxiety. He can also help kids with the same thing. He's been doing this for 15 years. He's been helping people, and he is here for you today. So if you want to check out his website is nolensvillepsychiatry.com. That's nolensvillepsychiatry.com. There's a whole list of issues that he can help you with. So check him out. If you feel like he can help you, give him a call. The number is below, and good luck.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
Good morning. It is now 7:30. I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. Couple of problems on the roads this morning. Westbound 40, the ramp to 213 is partially blocked off because of a stalled vehicle. And then you've got an accident, a serious one, Murfreesboro Pike at Bell Road. We'll detail more of that coming up in traffic and your forecast in just about 5 minutes. President-elect Trump, his nomination of Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz for Attorney General is being met with surprise. ABC's Rachel Scott.
Donald Trump's pick for Attorney General, sending shockwaves through Washington. The president-elect nominating Republican firebrand and staunch loyalist Matt Gaetz to one of the most influential jobs in his cabinet.
He's a great really a great person, and he's on the controversial side, but that's not bad.
If confirmed, Gaetz would lead the Department of Justice, which for years also led an investigation into Gaetz for alleged obstruction of justice and for alleged sex trafficking.
And that investigation failed to lead to any charges against Gaetz. In Putnam County, a construction worker has died after an accident on the roof of a new home. The Putnam County Sheriff's Office said 41-year-old Joseph Lesko died when one of the several trusses on the roof fell over, causing a domino effect of 20 or more trusses, and that pinned him underneath. EMS responders say that Lesko was killed instantly. Dennis Prager, founder of conservative online platform Prager University, is resting at an LA hospital this morning. He reportedly suffered a serious back injury following an accidental fall. PragerU says doctors are assessing treatment options. Market Numbers Report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com. We've got stock futures on the rise this morning. Dow futures now gaining 131. NASDAQ futures are plus 10. And we've got S&P futures up 7 points. That's the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
Thanks, Joan. 7:33 on Nashville's Morning News. Listen, if you love watches like I do, then you need to check out the Brentwood Jewelry Watch event going on. It's coming up November 18th through the 28th. You can skip the holiday lines and find early Christmas deals at Brentwood Jewelry's watch event with exclusive discounts on select watch brands. You'll find the perfect gift for everyone on your list and maybe one for yourself as well. So make this holiday season timeless with Brentwood Jewelry. And by the way, while you're there, remember you can find anything at Brentwood Jewelry. Watches, of course, rings, earrings, bracelets, you name it, they've got it at Brentwood Jewelry. Terrific options and prices at Brentwood Jewelry, 7012 Church Street East, located in the heart of Brentwood, just off Franklin Road. Tell him Dan Mandis told you to reach out. Exceptional style, exceptional deals every day for over 50 years. BrentwoodJewelry.com.
It is a van that is stalled in the Gore, and it's stopping traffic from moving around it on 40 westbound at the off-ramp to exit 213. Pretty slow in that area. Also, a crash involving some injuries, Nashboro Village at Murfreesboro Pike and Bell Road. And then a school bus is also stalled, blocking the left lane in Antioch at Hickory Hollow Parkway, northbound at I-24. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
737, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk. Hey, coming up, scurrilous accusations against your host. Scurrilous. More? Yes. And they didn't even start it out with, well, Dan.
Yeah, but we could add it if you want because, you know.
We have it.
Yeah, we do.
Now, we'll talk about that and a whole lot more straight ahead. I want to play this audio. I actually have not heard this audio yet. So I kind of like when somebody says, hey, did you hear this audio? And I haven't. Now, it's Cringe Jean-Pierre. And so I want to just listen to it, and you're going to get my honest reaction. Somebody said that this is the moment where KJP wanted to tell the White House press corps, F you.
In the meeting, we saw a unified front related to a transition in the Oval Office meeting. But a lot was said on the campaign trail, like Trump is a dangerous threat to our country and our democracy. Was there an apology today?
Oh. Was there an apology? I love that.
Who asked that question, do you know?
No, it wasn't.
It didn't sound like Steve Doocy.
It wasn't Steve Doocy, but this is, Joan, something that even the mainstream media has been asking because people were shocked.
Mm-hmm.
People were shocked yesterday. You had Donald Trump and Joe Biden in front of a roaring fire. And I said that was emblematic of like the dumpster fire that is Washington, D.C. and the Biden administration. Moving on from there, I think it's a great question. And you have had more mainstream journalists ask, listen, you were calling Donald Trump Hitler and a threat to democracy and all of that. And now you're sitting in front of a roaring fire. So, yeah, maybe you do because of that rhetoric. You were incredibly divisive. And this is something that maybe Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and other people owe Donald Trump and his followers, his supporters, an apology for calling us Hitler and Nazis, respectively, and also talking about how we are threats to democracy and all that.
I'm sorry?
Was there an apology from
President
Biden for the words, some of the words used?
An apology from the President Biden.
To President-elect Trump for some of the words that was used on the campaign trail.
Look, and I've answered this a couple of times about a threat to democracy in the past week. The president is going to always feel obligated to be honest with the American people.
Wait a minute. Okay. So, and again, I'm listening to this for the first time. She just said the president always wants to be honest with the American people. So was he being honest when he said that Trump was a threat to democracy? Because if he was, as I've said many times now, he would have tanks outside the White House to keep Hitler out of the White House. So was he being honest then, or was he not being honest? It seems to me, even Charlemagne, I talked about this earlier in the week, Charlemagne even called out the White House. Charlemagne is calling out the Democrats because he's saying, did you ever really believe that he was a threat to democracy? Because the way that Joe Biden and the Democrats are just laying down and allowing Donald Trump into the White House, it doesn't seem like they ever really meant these accusations. And if you think about the absolute vile nature of the accusations, calling Donald Trump Hitler, calling a lot of you Nazis, it's not only Donald Trump that deserves an apology, it's all of us.
What he says still stands. And it's not just him. You heard this from former staffers. You've heard it from the former chief of staff, John Kelly, and others. You've heard it directly from the president-elect, the former president, about enemy of the people. Very, very clear. Very clear.
Yeah, you know what? You're the enemy of the people when you say that your opponent is one of the worst people in the history of of the world. So yeah, that's a bit of a problem. And it's funny because her body language is sort of like, you can see her sort of stiffen up and biting her lip like, oh God, you know, here comes the questions again about all of the nasty rhetoric of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And please stop with the John Kelly stuff. Donald Trump's former chief of staff, who said that, Donald Trump was, what was it, Hitler tendencies or fascist tendencies or whatever it was. I mean, just as we said during the campaign, stop it. And here's the deal. She can excuse the behavior and the nasty rhetoric by saying, well, John Kelly said it. The American people didn't buy it. And that's the big takeaway here. The American people didn't buy it, and cringe Jean-Pierre knows and understands that the American people didn't buy it. And so they're in a very awkward and uncomfortable position because we didn't buy it, and people know that she and the White House and the media were lying when they talked about Donald Trump being a threat to democracy, that Donald Trump was Hitler and all of us were a bunch of Nazis.
What we want to be also very clear about is the importance of listening to the will of the American people.
Yep, they heard that, didn't they? I'm not going to miss her. Joan, who do you want to be White House press secretary? Now, that hasn't been announced yet.
It hasn't.
It's almost like that's the last one.
Yeah.
So we got the names. Alina Habba. Alina, right?
Yeah, Alina Habba.
Alina Habba.
Or Habba Habba.
Who
I got
said
to say
that?
it before you did.
That is so
today.
silly.
That's awesome.
Alina Habba Habba. Come on, man. Would you stop it? Amy's listening. Totally kidding. So you got Scott Jennings, my favorite Scott Jennings. Got some great Scott Jennings audio coming up. Also, Sage Steele. I don't think Sage Steele is good enough from a policy. No disrespect to Sage Steele, but most of her life was spent in sports. Former ESPN reporter or whatever it was. But my big two, Alina Habba or Scott Jennings.
Yeah, I'm all for Scott Jennings.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like Scott Jennings, too. 7:45 on Nashville's Morning News. Time to check the roads on WTN. .45, Nashville's Morning News. Cloudy today and rain continuing off and on, a high of 58. Johnny, you said it was what, 57?
56.
56. 56 degrees at Super Talk 99.7. People throwing in there. You know what I love about this audience in particular? I can totally nerd out on like, hey, who should be the press secretary? And everybody's all in on the conversation. That typically doesn't happen in real life. Carrie Lake for press secretary. A lot of people saying
she would also
Carrie
be
Lake.
really good.
She would be really good.
She's on point. Mm-hmm. She's in your face. Oh, yeah, she'd be good.
Vivek Ramaswamy. I think Vivek, he's not going to be part of the administration. He's part of that efficiency group or agency that Trump basically put together. It's Vivek Ramaswamy. And, who else is it? It's Vivek and
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, thank you. Getting old man disease. All right, now, very quickly. Very scurrilous accusations against yours truly. Not really, but somebody said, Dan, why are you against recess appointments? We've been talking about all the appointments of Donald Trump, his cabinet picks, Marco Rubio as Trump's Secretary of State, Kristi Noem, Department of Homeland Security, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence, Tom Homan for Border Czar, and, of course, Matt Gaetz, the Florida congressman, for Attorney General. And I tweeted out yesterday when I heard about Matt Gaetz that each and every pick seems designed to make their heads explode just a little more. I'm all for recess appointments. I have no problem with recess appointments, and I'm going to tell you why. Because for the first term of Donald Trump, he wanted to hit the ground running, but the Senate, they seemed to stand in his way at every turn. It took twice as long. I talked about this earlier. It took twice as long for Donald Trump's cabinet picks and those positions that needed to be confirmed, twice as long for his to get confirmed than Ronald Reagan. And so now Trump is saying to the new Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, that he wants these just we need to get these through right away. And Thune is saying, well, yes, I'm going to try to do that as best that I can. But Trump, apparently he wants these recess confirmations, where basically what happens is Congress goes on recess appointments, where Congress, they go in recess. And it's fairly simple. They go on recess. The president then makes his appointments, and those appointments are approved because Congress, including the Senate, isn't working. So how can you have the Senate confirmations if the Senate and the House and nobody is working? So everybody decides to go on recess, and then the recess appointments happen. They skip the whole advise and consent phase. Those appointments last, by the way, just so you know, for no more than 2 years, at which time the president can reappoint the cabinet members, or they can go through another recess appointment. So I'm all for this. And the reason I'm all for this is because I don't believe that the president's and his appointments will get a fair shake. Now, you need a simple majority to get these folks through as far as Senate approval goes, but there's already some Republicans that are saying that no, they will not support specifically Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. Now, in the media, you're going to see that all this hand-wringing that Donald Trump wants to do something that hasn't been done in generations, right? These recess appointments. George W. Bush made 171 recess appointments. Bill Clinton made 139. Barack Obama made at least 32. Trump's first term in office, he didn't do it at all. He probably should have, to be honest with you. And Joe Biden didn't do any. Now, we all know the grandstanding of the Senate confirmation process, especially during Trump's first term, where, again, it did take twice as long under Trump as it did President Reagan. And so the government wasn't staffed by the president's nominees. And so what he is trying to do is set the table and hit the ground running. Now, is Matt Gaetz the right guy for the Attorney General? I believe that he is. Real quickly, I should have played this earlier. Matt Gaetz versus Merrick Garland, the current Attorney General.
I'm just asking you as to a general principle, but you are aware that Judge Merchan's daughter was profiting off of this prosecution. You are aware that that creates the appearance of impropriety. You know the very reason there's a federal rule against judges giving donations is because it is the very attack on the judicial process that we're concerned about.
I'm sorry, I don't agree with anything you just said, but I'm not going to comment on it.
Okay, so you won't comment on it, Mr. Attorney General, but you had no problem dispatching Matthew Colangelo. Who's Matthew Colangelo?
That is false. I did not dispatch Matthew Colangelo.
All right. So remember what that whole soundbite is about. Trump being hauled into court over the hush money payment to Stormy Daniels. Judge Merchan, who had the case, and it turned out that he had actually donated to Joe Biden and left-wing groups. And his daughter was an operative and a fundraiser for the Democrats. Remember all that? And Merchan put a gag order on Donald Trump, violated his civil rights, his right, in my opinion, to a fair trial, and his right to free speech. And Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, didn't seem to care about any of that. And then, yeah, you do. You have this guy, Matthew Colangelo, and I told you all about this way back when, but you heard that Matt Gaetz brought this up. Now, Colangelo is a guy that had a great gig at the Department of Justice working for Merrick Garland. Great attorney, they say. And then suddenly, this guy Colangelo decided to demote himself to assistant DA there in New York. A massive demotion. So that he could work on the Trump case. Like he was secretly assigned to the case by Merrick Garland to go after Donald Trump.
Matthew Colangelo. Who's Matthew Colangelo?
That is false. I did not dispatch Matthew Colangelo.
Matthew
Colangelo
became the Assistant Attorney General at the very beginning of the Biden administration. Without having been Senate confirmed, goes and gets this senior role at the DOJ, and then after, I believe it's Gupta replaces Colangelo, Colangelo makes this remarkable downstream career journey from the U.S. Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., and then pops up in Alvin Bragg's office to go get Trump. And you're saying that's just a career choice that was made that has nothing to do with the lawfare coordinated by the
I'm saying it's false. I did not dispatch Mr. Colangelo anywhere.
Do you know how he ended up there?
I assume he applied for a job there and got the job.
But see, you know
I
what?
can tell you I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, so I don't know about you, and I remember when all of this was going on. Nobody believes Merrick Garland had nothing to do with it. And so for supporters of Matt Gaetz, that's why you love Matt Gaetz, because he is somebody who can go in and clean up the DOJ. And as I've been saying now for weeks, if not months, I've been a little bit more forceful on it here in the last several weeks. I don't mind Donald Trump going in with an enemies list, because what those enemies of the American people did was they tried to do everything they could to, number one, disrupt the first election and disrupt the second election with all of their lawfare. So if Matt Gaetz wants to go in and clean out an incredibly politicized Department of Justice, then that is what he needs to do. 7:53, Nashville's Morning News. So, yeah, Matt Gaetz gets my vote. Joan Jones also gets my vote as, news person of
the year?
Sure.
Century.
Of the year. Well, how about for the day?
All right, fine. I'll take it.
Keeping you humble, Joan. Anyway,
Thank you.
What's coming up at 8?
So where does Governor Lee stand on closing down the Department of Education? We'll tell you. Also, the GOP has secured the majority in the House of Representatives. Those stories coming up at 8 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Joan. And 7:54, so many reasons to like my two-way paradise, the Glock store. Number one, it is a great place to buy guns and ammo, get your firearms customized, and also my favorite part, which is the training. I mean, you can buy guns and ammo. I mean, you can pick that up a lot of different places. But the training at the Glock store is so incredibly not only unique, but it is also effective and impactful. Now, at the Glock store, they've got these massive rooms where you can refine your shooting skills, firing behind corners, in the dark, in motion, and various target levels as well. I've done all of that. So don't settle for lane ranges. Go to the Shoot 270 indoor ranges at the Glock store. If you want to find out what these are really like, you can see videos at shoot270.com. You can see what it's all about. I got to tell you, if you've been to some of these lane ranges, I almost said lame ranges, but that too, you're not going to find anything better than the Shoot 270 indoor ranges at the Glock store. Again, these massive rooms give you the opportunity for some really impactful training. Find them online, shoot270.com. Minutes from the airport and worth the drive from anywhere.
Good morning, 8 o'clock now, 8:01 actually. I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. We're sitting at 56 with overcast skies. Checking out your forecast in just a moment. Senate Majority Whip John Thune of South Dakota will take over as Senate Majority Leader in January after yesterday's leadership vote. He has said that all options are on the table when asked about pushing President-elect Trump's appointments through during an extended recess. Still, his selection isn't setting well with some conservatives.
He's basically a protege of Mitch McConnell. He's a lot like Mitch McConnell, and like Mitch McConnell, he was harshly critical of Donald Trump after January 6th. He voted to acquit him in that Senate trial, but made it clear that he was condemning his behavior on that day. And there were other moments throughout the Trump presidency where every once in a while, John Thune would stand up and make it clear he didn't approve of what Trump was doing.
That's ABC's Jonathan Karl. President-elect Donald Trump, meantime, has said he wants to dismantle the Department of Education. And Tennessee Governor Bill Lee is okay with that.
We know Tennessee. We know our children. We know the needs here much better than a bureaucracy in Washington, D.C. does. So I would welcome that opportunity.
Lee telling Channel 4 he's confident Tennessee can manage funding for children with disabilities, English as a second language, and those in rural areas. Well, it's been a week since the election, but some House races have yet to be decided. However, the GOP is now projected to maintain the majority of the House after having secured 218 seats. Democrats currently hold 208. The states where ballots are still being tallied include Alaska, Maine, Iowa, California, Ohio, and Oregon. And believe in them or not, the U.S. government says UFOs, or unidentified anomalous phenomena as they're now called, are a security concern. ABC's Andrew Dimbert on Luis Elizondo, who is headed a Pentagon program investigating so-called UAPs.
Elizondo saying the alleged extraterrestrial presence poses a national security threat.
Let me be clear. UAP are real. Advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe.
And saying he believes many classified materials should be shared with Congress and the public.
If this was an adversarial technology, this would be an intelligence failure eclipsing that of 9/11 by an order of magnitude. I believe that we as Americans can handle the truth. And I also believe the world deserves the truth.
That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Just one trouble spot right now. It's on Hickory Hollow Parkway in the northbound lanes right at I-24. You're going to find a school bus that's been stalled out, and it's blocking the left lane. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Information fueled.
Opinion driven. This is Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
we talk news.
8:06, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to you, friends. Final hour of Nashville's Morning News. Joan, very quickly, you were playing some of the audio of those teachers that lost their ever-loving minds and they were yelling at kids in the classroom after one of them, I guess, wore a Trump hat or shirt or something. The parents of those kids are now speaking out, and I'm going to play that audio coming up at 8:35 during the Gang of Four right here on Super Talk 99.7. It is unbelievably awesome. And speaking of unbelievably awesome, we've got Jonathan Fahey on with us. Jonathan, always great to have you on, former federal prosecutor, also worked with ICE, of course, and within the Trump administration first time around. And Jonathan, I got to ask you, first of all, I want to play you this audio from John Fetterman after Donald Trump announced that he wanted Matt Gaetz to be his attorney general.
I mean, I would describe it as God tier level trolling to just trigger a full-on China syndrome to own the libs in perpetuity.
I mean, that obviously that is true. There's two things going on. I think number one is Donald Trump is looking to shock the system. And I mean, I think you are in the Washington, D.C. area. I think that's what he's done.
Yeah, exactly. John Fetterman is probably the most interesting Democrat to listen to these days because he does have, this rare ability in politics, certainly on their side, to actually see things in a different way. And he, spoke out during the campaign that, he kind of gave the suggestion that, Trump is doing something well and winning in Pennsylvania. But it is funny. It is like high-level trolling on a lot of ways, but also it just shows what Donald Trump and this administration thinks about what's been going on at DOJ. And I think most of the public don't like it either, with the politicization, with all of these things, not just the Trump prosecutions, but you got, 70-year-old grandmothers getting prosecuted still for, I don't know if it's still, but still for the January 6th cases. And they keep bringing these, and the school boards and all of these things that have been atrocious. And it's just funny watching the meltdown about this. But, you got to remember, look at Biden's pick. All it was just like DEI Olympics. It had nothing to do with qualifications. Look at what did Pete Buttigieg do to become the transportation secretary?
He was a mayor.
Yeah, so what did he have to do with it? Rachel Levine, how was she picked? It's absurd. So, and look at, they were talking about, they've been complaining about Pete Hegseth, and it's like, well, how's Lloyd Austin done as defense secretary? It's been disastrous. We can't even recruit anymore. So, it's fun watching the meltdown. It's also, I think one thing with whether or not, when you talk about Matt Gaetz, whether or not he gets through. If he doesn't get through, the next person they put through will get through in flying colors. So that's also, there's probably a way to negotiate. Okay, we'll give up one, but you got to then confirm everyone else without, squawking.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because somebody said Matt Gaetz, maybe this is a decoy, and maybe that he is going to be, not the actual pick, but he announced Gaetz because he wants the next person to come through with flying colors. But now they're talking about a recess appointment. At least Donald Trump is talking about recess appointments. And, there's people that are saying, and people are hitting me up on the super text line saying, well, how good of a candidate do you have if the president needs to utilize a recess appointment to get your candidates through? And on the one hand, I do understand that, but I also understand that there's a lot of people that hate Donald Trump, even on the Republican side, and his first term in office, it was a train wreck trying to get his cabinet positions and his confirmations through.
Yeah, exactly. And, all the Democrats, the acting up, all of this stuff, in a way it brings out their worst qualities, and it's funny, you would think if you're on the Democratic side, you would think, all right, we may want to reset a little bit. We've been the party of abortion and anti-Trump, and it didn't work this time. Maybe we should, do a little bit of a recess and not fight every battle or go into hysterics every time someone says something that's somewhat politically incorrect or whatever, because people are
so tired of it. But I do think, one thing with, the Trump presidency, they're off to a flying start because meaning, he's not even the president now, although he seems like he already is, but he's putting people in that are going to be strong on his agenda, and also, getting it in there before, getting things ready to roll, which I think he learned from his last term. Get the agenda done because 2026, the midterms are really going to be, if he executes his agenda effectively, it will be a good year for the Republicans. If he doesn't, it will be a tough year, and then you have the 2 years that you're fighting against the Congress. So I think he wants to get his agenda done. If he deals with immigration, deals with the taxes, gets the economy rolling, he's going to be in good shape. And I think he wants to focus on the issues and not necessarily have a bunch of, fights going on. But I think Fetterman may be onto something, but who knows? I don't really – this pick surprised people, but the Pete Hegseth pick surprised me. I gave it a little thought. It's like, well, the two biggest problems, at least from my vantage point of the military, are they can't recruit anymore, and everyone's sick of the woke stuff. Okay, you have a guy that's going to deal with both of those because he could bring in the enthusiasm. He's somebody that people want to aspire to. He's Lloyd Austin looks half asleep most of the time. He's not doing anything to recruit. So I think, it really will. And running the Pentagon, it's not one person running the Pentagon. He gets good people around him. And, so it's not necessary that you have to have somebody that had been there for 30 years or something. He can get good people around him. He's a smart person. He's an effective communicator. And he's in line with the agenda. And if we could, in 4 years, get rid of all this DEI woke stuff and start recruiting again, our military will be far better off than what's going on now.
And here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with having somebody with television experience, and he's a highly decorated veteran. He's got incredible education behind him as well. He's a best-selling author. And so you're right. If you're talking about recruitment, who better than a guy like Pete Hegseth to try to drive up that recruitment? Because as you know, it has been down. I love, though, the reaction from folks on the left.
Your president is moving quickly to fill the clown car and round out his cabinet. He has selected Fox Weekend morning show host, you can't make this up, Pete Hegseth, to serve as Secretary of Defense, because why not?
Co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend. Not even like regular. Weekend. Pete Hegseth. Hegseth? Yeah. Okay.
So the ladies, I'm using that term loosely, on The View, and many others, we saw this on MSNBC with Nicole Wallace, they're making fun of Hegseth's name, and they're also making fun of the pick. And generally speaking, they're making fun of a lot of Donald Trump's picks. But, when you look at the fact that, for example, Leon Panetta was one of the ringleaders, past Defense Secretary Leon Panetta was one of the ringleaders who lied to America regarding Hunter Biden's laptop and it being Russian disinformation. So a lot of these folks that are in this pool of swamp dwellers who would have been up for this job or these kinds of jobs, they're the types or have actually lied to the American people about things like the Hunter Biden laptop. It makes all the sense in the world once you take a step back and you look at who Pete Hegseth is and what he has not done in Washington, D.C., it does make all the sense in the world. More with Jonathan Fahey coming up, 8:15. Time to check the roads. $8:16. As far as your weather, cloudy with rain today and a high of 58. Thanks for listening to Nashville's Morning News. You were talking, Jonathan, about some of these other folks like Leon Panetta, Lloyd Austin. Of course, he also lied about his prostate cancer surgery. Let's not forget the disastrous military apparatus of the Biden administration that pulled out of Afghanistan. That was a nightmare. So it's not like it's working out real well right now. But, the media, they're so desperate to try to discredit Pete Hegseth, they're decoding his tattoos. It's just nuts.
It's utter nonsense. And the vote for Donald Trump is a vote that says, hey, people aren't happy with the way Washington's working. So that's what it happened last time. It's like, wait, the establishment was what fought against Donald Trump more than anything else. People in this establishment. And it's like the American people don't see this establishment as working for them. It works for the people within the establishment, but outside of it, it doesn't. And you're right, they're going to do all of these things, but it's like, can they honestly look anyone in the mirror and say, hey, the way the Pentagon has been run for the last 4 years has been great for America, has made us more secure, safer? There's no way they could credibly say that. So why not try somebody? And it's like, yeah, make fun of him for being on TV. He also went to Princeton. He also did all these other, he has, 2 or 3 Bronze Stars.
He's got 2.
So it's like, this is a very accomplished person because he didn't go up through this establishment, the accepted establishment path. He shouldn't be selected. Well, Donald Trump didn't. Donald Trump hadn't run for school board and then county board and then state. He ran for president and won.
Point.
So it's like, he's not establishment. And, I just don't even see the argument. I mean, I see wanting to push back on nominees, just because you do it politically, but I don't find that to be a particularly compelling argument when they're doing it, and they're going to do it on everyone. And it's like, well, look at go back to like I was saying earlier, go back to their nominees.
Yeah.
And they had 4 years with their nominees. Is the country more prosperous? Are we safer? Like, what is better because we had these people that the establishment approved of in power? What is the objective criteria?
You know
that
what?
we can say
Jonathan,
we won because of them?
You're right. It's almost like, okay, let's look at what your side did. Let's look at what your people did to America, to Americans, and our border and our military. All of these things have been complete train wrecks, courtesy of the Biden administration. What do you think about the recess appointments? George Bush made 171 recess appointments. Bill Clinton, 139. Barack Obama made at least 32. Basically, as I've been explaining to folks, a recess appointment. Congress goes on recess. The president makes his appointments, and those appointments are approved because Congress, including the Senate, isn't working, and you just kind of blow through. You don't have the whole dog and pony show of the confirmation hearings, which, as you know, that basically is, a lot of yelling, finger pointing, a lot of gaveling, and so forth. I know that there's a lot of Republicans, even those who are on Donald Trump's side, that say, well, if he couldn't get these folks confirmed, then what does that say about the people that he wants to bring into for example, the defense secretary role or the attorney general's office? I mean, if you have to do it, kind of backdoor them in, what does that say? And I understand why Trump wants to do what he wants to do. But, in 30 seconds or less, I mean, I think you basically mentioned this before, but what is your overarching thought on the recess appointments?
Try to get them confirmed the normal way, I think, is the best way to do it, as more legitimacy and everything else. If they are fighting tooth and nail, being silly, playing games, all of that stuff, then go down the recess appointment route. I think the issue, my best understanding of it, is they need a recess apparently of at least 10 days. Yep. I think that could be a problem if you're trying to also get your agenda pushed through, because the first, 90 days, 100 days, whatever, they always say 100 days, but this is when you get stuff done. So I think you got to weigh all these out, but I think it's not bad to have that hanging out there to say to the opposition, we're putting these people in one way or another. You need to come along, or do you want to be just again, back to being the party of, anti-Trump, January 6th and abortion? If that's your party, that's your party. But then we're going to put these people in.
What'd you think of Joe Biden and Donald Trump's meeting yesterday? Biden was like beaming. And I swear, this just gives more ammunition for people to think that Joe Biden secretly wanted Donald Trump to win.
Yeah, the two happiest people in Washington yesterday, I think, were Biden and Trump, and probably Jill Biden as well. It is so funny that I think it stung him so bad the way they treated him, that there is, he seemed the happiest. I mean, I watch the stuff, you watch it all the time, that I've seen him like just in any setting in the longest time. It was just like they seemed like they're having the time of their lives, and it's so funny watching the dysfunction with the Democrats, because they can't justify what they've been doing with respect to Biden for the last 3 years, hiding his deficiencies and then dumping them when it became expedient for him.
Yep.
So, I think he's very happy. I think a lot of people in the Democratic side are thrilled that Trump won. I mean, Josh Shapiro is probably happy as a clam. Gavin Newsom, so many people are happy that he won, and it's just so it is very funny to watch that because, he was Hitler a couple weeks ago, and now they're bringing him into the White House and yucking it up and, telling stories or whatever they were doing back there. But I'm it just shows how incredible all of their attacks were to begin with. They never believed them to begin with.
Well, it's going to be interesting, too, because you got, in the news today, you've got these Democrat governors who are saying they're going to Trump-proof their states. And they just don't get it. California went way higher for Donald Trump than previous in 2016. And I think if I remember right, California got more votes for a Republican than they've received in years. And so they don't understand. These Democrat governors, they see what's going on in their states and across America, especially with illegal immigration. And they're saying that they're going to Trump-proof their states, which means that they're not going to cooperate with mass deportation. Well, Jonathan, you and I both know who's being deported. They're gang members.
Yeah, exactly. They should go back. The Massachusetts governor has been really outspoken on this too, and she's, it's really funny. They should go back to the Remain in Martha's Vineyard policy. Say, hey, why don't we send all of them there until they get their adjudicated in court? If you think it's so great, but it's so funny because what they're going to try to do, which they've always done and done successfully in the media, mischaracterize who's being deported. They're going to pass some law that'll say, we will not allow deportations in children's cancer wards. And so just to give the impression they're deporting kids that are getting, chemo or something. And everyone knows it's not true. They do that in Northern Virginia. The school system will not cooperate with ICE. It's like ICE was never going into schools and getting people. And the only time they would even consider it would be if it was a dangerous gang member with an imminent danger to the students, which people should want. But they're going to play all of those games. But I think it's ultimately, I guess there's Democratic Party is split. They have the people that are going to ride the anti-Trump thing to the end, and it's probably Newsom, the governor of Massachusetts. But I think there are going to be some other Democrats that are going to say, hey, the Republicans are actually reasonable on this issue and have been reasonable the entire time. So it's like, I question how it plays out, but if they want to have this battle, I think ultimately it hurts the residents of their state. You see day in and day out of these horrible crimes being committed by illegal aliens, and they're going to fight to keep them in their states. Well, that's going to ultimately, you're putting politics ahead of the safety of your own residents and citizens. It's insane to me.
Well, we'll have to see how it all plays out. Jonathan Fahey, always great to have you on the program, and we look forward to talking to you again. 8:25 on Nashville's Morning News. I want to say, I'm looking for the number of, I want to say Trump's support in California. It grew exponentially. Obviously, Kamala Harris won the state, but people were really surprised at how well Donald Trump did. And so when Gavin Newsom comes out and he says, well, we're going to Trump-proof California, I think there's a lot of people that are going to be very angry about that. But you know what? They'll join the exodus out of California. 8:24 on Nashville's Morning News. Joan Jones has the news coming up.
New alarms over Venezuelan street gangs operating here in Tennessee. Also, Alex Jones's InfoWars has a new owner this morning. That's coming up at 8:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Joan. 8:25 Nashville's Morning News. Every night in my house, homework time, we thank the Lord we have Xfinity Internet. Now, we can stay connected with Wi-Fi coverage that delivers the speed we need, and you can too. Now, listen, homework and radio shows don't wait for the Internet to work. You need a reliable connection, even when everyone is online and working. I rely on Xfinity, and you can too. I've been an Xfinity customer for years. And by the way, if you do end up with issues, Xfinity has 24/7 customer service here for you whenever you need it with in-home Wi-Fi support. And if you're on the go, you can stay connected with over 20 million secure Xfinity Wi-Fi hotspots nationwide. So get the best Wi-Fi for your life, whether it's doing homework with the kids or work for the paycheck. Rock-solid internet is only a phone call away with Xfinity. To get started, call them 1-800-XFINITY, 1-800-XFINITY, online, xfinity.com, or drop into an Xfinity store today for more details.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
Good morning. It's now 8:30, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation has put Governor Bill Lee on notice about the alarming number of incidents involving the Venezuelan gang Tres de Aragua. TBI Director David Roush testifying on Tuesday.
Recently, there was a video that they shot where they shot an individual, a cartel member, 31 times, broad daylight, on video and posted it to social media. And that's the type of organization they are. They are very violent. This is a group that was created in gangs in Venezuela, in the prisons in Venezuela, and they are here, and they're in numbers here.
That audio courtesy of Channel 4. Roush says that they're also seeing more cases of human trafficking, organized retail theft, and drug sales. President Trump is back in Florida after his White House visit. Last night, he made an appearance at the America First Policy Institute's annual gala at his Mar-a-Lago club.
It's the most consequential win in the last 129 years. What's that all about? That's a lot. I just wanted to win. Didn't have to be that much. I just wanted to win. But we did. Yeah, too much winning. Too much winning. There's no such thing. Is there any such thing as too much winning?
Elon Musk was there as well, Trump thanking him for his consequential endorsement. And we've learned this morning that Alex Jones's InfoWars website was won in a bankruptcy auction by the satire website The Onion. No information available for the price paid, but the money will go to the families of the Sandy Hook victims who successfully sued Jones for claiming the Sandy Hook incident was a fabricated pretext for confiscating Americans' firearms. A judge awarded the families $1.5 billion. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
Thank you, Joan. 8:33 on WTN. Dan Mandis here with a question for you, friends. If your roof was destroyed in a storm, how much of that replacement cost would your insurance company cover? Now, if you don't know, you really do need to ask, because some insurance companies, they refuse to pay full replacement cost. They're going to deduct money for an older roof, and this means that the insurance company will depreciate how much they pay for your roof claim, and that means that you could be on the hook for thousands of dollars if you have an older roof. Now, my friends at King & Associates Insurance, they will pay full replacement cost. So whether you have to replace a 10-year-old roof or a 2-year-old roof, they will pay for it to be replaced, period. It is that kind of focus on customer service that makes King & Associates Insurance one of the absolute best insurance companies around. Call them at 615-329-8121. 615-329-8121. Get your royal review at tkinginsurance.com.
Problem on 65 southbound lanes this morning. An accident blocks the right shoulder at Trinity Lane, exit 87. Also got a crash Rosa Parks Boulevard at Church Street. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
8:38, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Time for the gang of four. Chris Hand is here. Hey, Chris, how are you?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Johnny B's here. Jones here. I'm here. I'm Dan.
Hi, Dan.
Hey, Dan.
Well, Dan.
We're moving on from yesterday's two-word takedown of your host. Well, Dan. Moving on from that. Joan.
Yes, sir.
So you had that longer audio bite of that teacher losing his ever-loving mind on a student who apparently wore some Trump gear in California. So do you have the ability to play that?
Yeah, they're actually two back-to-back ones. I think these are the ones you want. You ready?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. Oop. Play.
You deserve better than a rapist, bribery, treacherous scum.
Wow.
Go! Take the Can you send security up? Please, room B205. I have a boy who has a Trump hat on. I'm not going to tolerate it.
So,
what I wouldn't give to be back in high school in Massachusetts or a liberal state in 2024. I mean, if anybody that listens to me knew me in high school and they thought I was bad back then, imagine if I was back in high school now.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine being the parent and getting that phone call, knowing full well that your kids supported Donald Trump, went to class with maybe a Trump hat on or whatever it is, and the teacher loses their mind? And if you're already living in California and you voted for Donald Trump and you know the absolute train wreck that California is, and this Jack A teacher has the audacity to yell at my kid, oh, can you imagine? I would get so pissed off, I would sound like this mom.
It is time that the school districts, stop tolerating hate speech in class. There should be zero tolerance for hate speech. To say that a Hispanic man wants to be white, I'm offended. Yo soy mexicana. I am Chicana, I am indigenous, and my family voted for Trump.
There you go.
I have family members that also voted for Kamala Harris, but does that give me an excuse or anyone else a reason to racially attack them? No, it doesn't. What are you going to do about this teacher? Because he should be fired. There should be zero tolerance for hate speech. And ma'am, you really need to stop with the grinning. All I see is a room full of parents that are very angry. You need to be respectful. All of you need to be reminded you are public servants. The people pay for you to be there, and the people can remove you quickly.
There you go.
I love it.
You know what? I think that we need to see more of that. We will probably see more of that. The more that people come out of the closet and proudly say that they voted for Donald Trump, and there was one audio bite that we played earlier where one of the teachers was saying, "Why would you vote for Donald Trump? Why, or something to that effect." And it's like, well, because of the issues of illegal immigration and the economy. I mean, it's not that hard.
Yeah, I mean, well, we've been seeing a rise of parents at school board meetings now for a while.
I love it.
The claws are out on the mama bears, and they're. I mean, that's a big reason Trump won the female vote. Was that everything we're seeing happening in the public indoctrination system.
Hey, I want to know, what is the Onion going to do with Alex Jones?
Can you believe that,
Johnny? What do you think? What's the Onion going to do with Alex Jones? Because I guess Joan was reporting that the Onion bought Alex Jones. I wonder how much they paid.
So these are my questions. How much did they pay, and how did they have that money? Because I can't, even if it's dirt cheap, I can't imagine the Onion had it.
Well, here's the question. What are they going to do with it? Like, are they going to try to shut him down? Are they going to just, give him free reign to continue to practice his free speech?
They're gonna kill that thing immediately.
They're gonna kill it?
But here, that's why I just don't understand. You buy it, congratulations, it's yours. And now we're gonna have Alex Jones Live or Alex Jones Network or Alex Jones on X. It's just gonna be a rebrand. Like, you can buy that. Congratulations, you just wasted a whatever amount of money you spent on it, and then okay.
You know what? Here's the deal with Alex Jones. and I've got my problems with Alex Jones, but the man deserves to have his free speech, and he's suffered the consequences for that whole, the school shooting in Connecticut was fake thing. He's trust me when I say he's paid the price for that. But he's got his right to free speech, and they're doing everything they possibly can to destroy him. And they're only going to make him stronger and more well-known.
The Alex Jones school thing, like, he's apologized for that so many times now. It's like asking Donald Trump to disavow white supremacy at this point. Like, how many times do you have to do it? I don't know. That's just, it's too much.
Hey, can we talk about UAPs?
Yeah, let's do it.
So you've been playing audio from this Elizondo guy.
Yeah.
Who is, I forget where he's from, CIA, whatever it is. But he's come out now, and he used to work for the government. He used to be part of this whole investigation. Then he left government work, and apparently all of the things that he signed to be quiet are now expired. And he's been sounding the alarm on these UAPs. And I want to play a couple of audio bites because this is really scary.
Mr. Elizondo, in regards to these aircraft being piloted by whatever they might be, non-human biologics, would you agree that it's likely that they are being piloted by some mind-body connection?
Ma'am, I think it is safe to presume here that they are being intelligently controlled because some cases seem to anticipate our maneuvers, and in other cases they seem to I came across an email where the word "stalked" was used in a very secure email between Navy officers discussing their ships being pursued by a UAP.
Yeah, I mean, there's videos out there and so forth, and you've got these planes flying, and they are literally being pursued by these UAPs.
Space ghosts.
Space ghosts.
I like that.
I do too.
Unidentified aerial phenomena. As opposed to UFO. Why did they change the name?
I don't know. It was a weak rebrand.
Yeah. Luis Elizondo, media personality, formerly employed by the United States Army Counterintelligence and the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence. So he was part of all of these investigations. Do you guys know what G-forces are? Did you see like Top Gun and Maverick? Do we all know what G-forces are?
I've never watched Top Gun.
What?
Yeah.
I'm not. Don't derail me, Chris.
I'm not doing it either.
A G-force.
I don't care what any of you say.
What?
Tom Cruise, I lost all respect for him when he jumped on that Oprah couch.
Yeah, well, okay.
We're not going back.
He was in love.
We're not going back.
He was in love.
Don't get derailed, Dan. Don't get derailed.
He's short, and he's not a good actor. Keep going.
And he looks the same age. He looks like a teenager.
Overrated, that movie.
You have a problem with shortness? Because, the guy sitting next to you?
Yeah, what's up with that?
I thought you were standing.
Joan, don't encourage him.
I'm sorry.
The heck? Joan doesn't get that excited when I, insult one of you two. She's like, oh yes,
got him.
When Marsha Blackburn said, "Well, Dan," Joan was back there like doing a high five.
You didn't get to hear it, but I actually played it in the news too. Yeah,
you did not.
I did too.
Yes, you did.
Yeah. I actually heard from people yesterday who thought that was the funniest thing.
Why would you play it in the news?
Well, because it was part of what she said, so I just sort of left it there.
It was breaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
Oh,
was
my
breaking
goodness
news.
gracious.
That was big news, Dan.
Big.
Remember?
Was it?
That was breaking news.
Remember when you said you didn't want to get derailed?
So this Luis Elizondo. This is really interesting what they're talking about with the G-force, the flying G's of these UAPs. Listen to this.
The human body can withstand about 9 G-forces for a short period of time before you suffer negative biological consequences.
Now, you would know this, Chris, but G-force is if you accelerate upwards at like, a bazillion miles an hour, then that gravity you feel is like a G-force. You feel twice as heavy as normal, for example.
All right.
So if you'd watch Top Gun,
is that where you learned?
You would know this.
That is like 10, 12, 13 Gs, whatever it is, and you run the risk of not only dying, but and more importantly, probably to the Air Force, is that your plane ends up dismantling.
Okay.
The whole thing just goes to heck. So Listen to what he says about the Gs.
Blackouts and ultimately redouts and even death. Comparison, our best technology, the F-16, which is this older platform, but one of our most highly maneuverable aircraft, manned aircraft, made by General Dynamics, can perform about 17 or 18 G-forces before you start having structural failure, meaning that the airframe begins to disintegrate while you're flying. 17 to 18 Gs, all right? The vehicles we're talking about are performing in excess of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 Gs.
Whoa.
That's amazing.
Man.
Now, you have never watched Top Gun, so you don't know how amazing of an audio bite that is.
I don't know. Space Ghost. A lot of people on the text line are telling me that Top Gun sucks, so I don't see it.
It doesn't.
I don't know who you people are anymore.
Yeah.
Top Gun is really good. You know what I didn't like about Top Gun? Tom Cruise's teeth. Good God, man. He looks like a piranha.
You know what lost me was when they took the Taiwan badge off the jacket in the second movie because they had to satiate the Chinese audience to make money. Slime balls. Free Taiwan. Let's say it till we can't.
They had to afford Tom Cruise. I don't know what to tell you. No, you're right on that. I think we I think me and Johnny talked about that at one point on the air. I actually didn't like that, but that didn't preclude me from seeing the movie. Because you
You're cool like that?
He likes the Top Gun.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why you have such a thing about Tom Cruise just because he jumped on a couch.
I'm just not a fan. Just not a fan. And the Scientology stuff.
Oh,
weird.
yeah.
Yeah, well, that's kind of weird. But you have to be able to separate the actor from the person, right?
Nope.
Whatever. You know what? I think the super texters are trying to. They've been trying to troll me all day.
Have they?
Yeah.
Oh, this is fun. Hang on, let me look.
Tom Cruise is a.
Maverick was good.
Some of these people I don't. Yeah.
Dell said Top Gun is Star Wars for guys that can get a date.
Very good, Dell. Hey, what do you think, real quick, because we're running late? What do you think of Matt Gaetz?
Oh, I love it. I love every minute of it.
Me too.
I think that he's going to be a pit bull off his leash, and I'm here for it. When you see the establishment Republicans and the leftists melting down, you know it was a good pick.
Wendy says Mandis, Tom Cruise, same thing.
We've never seen you two in the room at the same time.
Yeah.
Listen, Wendy, I like what you're throwing down.
Oh, I have to go to the Church of Scientology and see if they show up together.
You gonna jump on a couch for Amy?
How do you know I haven't already? Listen,
Once again, we've waded into TMI territory.
I bought a couch for Amy. Forget about jumping on it.
Okay.
When you asked her father for her hand in marriage, are you jumping on the couch? I'm in love.
No, do you know I actually did that?
Did you? I did. I did the same thing.
So her father is I think 4 years older than me. Amy's, for you folks who don't know, she's 17 years younger than me. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So no, I just
cradle.
So it seemed kind of silly me asking her father for his permission to ask Amy to marry me, but that's what I did. Eddie said, let's just say he was very excited.
Was he the one jumping on the couch?
Yes, he was. Please, man, marry her. Please.
Somebody take her.
And he told Dan to help her with her homework. So.
No, that was me with Riker last night. Oh, my Lord.
Oh, man. Johnny, good one.
Oh, look at Joan again. apparently,
He's so quiet sometimes, you know?
Apparently,
if we had a quarter for every time Joan laughed at one of our jokes about Dan, we'd have a pizza party by now.
That's actually very
anyway?
fun.
We should get a Joan laughs jar.
0803, good for you, Dan. Dan Mandis is Steven Tyler.
Did you see the text line? I've never seen the text line more divided. There are people that think I'm an idiot, and there are people that think that I'm on point. Did you see what Kevin said? Kevin went personal.
What did he say?
He said Maverick was awesome. Hand is an idiot. Plus the music he plays is pure bleep. You don't like my bumpers, Kevin? Kevo,
wow.
Come on, man.
Man.
I have the best bumper music.
Nope. Nope. But I do every once in a while. I'll find myself going down. Right? I mean, I do that.
Yeah.
It's a little catchy.
Oh yeah.
Just a little.
just a hair.
Just a hair. All right, 8:53. Joan, what's coming up?
cradle robber praying Mandis.
Wow.
Sorry, that was really funny. So his resignation caught the House by surprise, but check it out. Matt Gaetz may have done leadership a big favor. We'll tell you how. Also, a construction worker was killed in Putnam County after a terrible accident. Got those stories coming up at 9 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
8:53, Dan Mandis here. Now is the time to call Cove Generators. Now, if you've ever wanted a backup home standby generator, now is the time to do it with my friends from Cove Generators. Plus, they've got great financing options as well. They are your premier Generac home standby generator dealer in the state of Tennessee. Right now, Cove Generators is offering you a free 10-year warranty. That is over $1,000, well over $1,000 value. They will also answer any questions you may have. Buy your generator from Cove Generators, and you are prepared for the next power outage, and you will never lose power again. Tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out. 931-559-3311, 931-559-3311. You can find them online, covegenerators.com. They can also service your Generac automatic standby generator or any brand of generator that you own. covegenerators.com. $8:56, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Friends, are there relatives coming to your house for Thanksgiving dinner? Let Busy Bee help you by ensuring that your home is in-law and relative ready. Busy Bee has a limited number of 14 SEER, 1 and 1.5 to 3 ton split heat pumps for only $69.95. This system offers a great balance of energy, efficiency, performance, and year-round comfort for residential homes. You can also become a Beehive member. I've been a Beehive member for years. Now, if you are a Beehive member, then you can get a free one for the in-laws. Now, you already have to be a Beehive member. You qualify for that additional membership for the in-laws. Call them today and sign up to be a Beehive member. 615-775-7833. 615-775-7833. Bringing families together the Busy Bee way with Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. For satisfaction guaranteed, find them online. BusyBeeHVAC.com. They are your Rude Pro partner. 615-775-7833.